watching in whoever is watching in the recording. Today's topic is how our body and our psyche always try to protect us. And the subject came to me after analysis of such a difficult issue as sexual trauma, because sexual trauma has it's a spectrum, obviously, in its severity, in how it's implemented, what effects it has, how it manifests in the body and in the mind. And when we extrapolate it to a wide variety of different traumatic things that happen in life, we start noticing pretty much same patterns. But usually what happens, unfortunately, is that people who were exposed to trauma, first of all, they perhaps ally more with the trauma than they ally with their own body. And that perpetuates the cycle of retraumatization that people experience. Because instead of allying with the body, instead of allying with their psyche, instead of understanding what is happening and actually appreciating that, they start feeling like, I don't want that. It's something bad. It's something that works against me. It should be different. So today I wanted to dig into the subject of trauma recovery and how to work with it, how we can reimagine the whole concept of trauma in a more productive way. Hello, Kiva. Welcome. Because we can surely, if we undergo some traumatic event in life, we can treat it as the end of the world, or we can treat it as something bad happened and then it is a given. But in reality, our brain has a property of neuroplasticity. Our brain is designed to adapt. Our body is designed to adapt. So our entire body, including such body parts as our psyche, they're always adapting to something. And this is the first liberating clause of this video. I think I'm starting notes now. Thank you, Kiva. Whoever is joining, please check in the chat. It would be very nice to hear from you if you have any questions. Today's topic is how our body and our psyche always work to protect us, to keep us alive, to keep us well. And to begin unfolding this difficult issue of trauma and the role of the body and the psyche and how we can effectively build our pathway out of trauma, out of traumatic adaptation, I propose first to go through some definitions. Because in fact, we can reimagine trauma as an adaptation, perhaps some long-lasting adaptation or short-term but intense adaptation that happened there and then to adapt to some circumstances that are no longer relevant, for example. This is why in the now, it is perceived as a trauma. When person is inside of the traumatic event, they're unlikely to perceive it as a trauma. They're reacting to it. But when some time passes and they notice that their life looks a certain way, they recognize that there is some adaptation that doesn't serve them, that doesn't serve their goals, that doesn't serve what they want in life, that there is just some repeated pattern happening over and over and over. Then we can view it, we can regard it as an adaptation to something that happened there and then that is no longer serving us, that's no longer relevant. Even if we talk about something very harsh that happened to a human, then the second point to the subject is that even when something harsh is happening, human mind, human psyche, and human body, they work together to keep a person alive, to keep a person protected. And that second point here, after we've defined trauma as an adaptation that happened there and then to something that's no longer relevant and doesn't suit us anymore, when we now think that our body and our mind always work together to protect us, to shield us from something, to keep us alive, in this sense, we come to the second approach in our work to recover from trauma, which is to see our body and mind, their magnificent work that they have been doing in keeping us alive and well. Instead of, for example, saying that, okay, there was childhood trauma, now everything is screwed up. Then my mind doesn't work like I want it to because of trauma. So you tell your mind that you don't work like I want to. You tell your body that you don't work like I want to. Instead of acknowledging the magnificent work that they've been doing to keep you protected. And that brings us to the third thing that comes from the combination of the two. The traumatic responses, the traumatic adaptations, exist in our psyche only until they're no longer relevant. So you will be keeping the traumatic responses until you realize the way of life in which those adaptations are no longer relevant. So this is the secret, and this is the trinity that will form the strategy for trauma rehabilitation. Hello everyone who is joining. Thank you so much for checking in the chat. So how do we come from the point of having some trauma, recognizing it that something in the childhood was off? For example, a child underwent some SA from an adult, and now they come to adulthood, and for example, they struggle from building mature sexuality, or they enter transactional relationships in which their sexuality becomes the currency for receiving love, or something like that. They realize that they're unable to build a mature relationship with an equal partner, and at some age, or they, for example, they cannot have children. They don't want to. They feel like they're not eligible, or they kind of can't allow themselves some reproductive freedom, specifically coming from within, even when they have resources. But they have this infantile perception of self because there and then their sexuality was traumatized, so the psyche locked on that at that moment. So they come to realization sometime, like they're 35, 36 years old perhaps. They realize that something is off. They realize perhaps after some other events, some other traumatic physical events, in intimacy especially, when people are vulnerable, when people are open, when their full mind and body and psyche are aligned, emotional spheres aligned, everything is open, maximally relaxed, a little bit altered state of mind, the right words said in the moments of intimacy from the right person who knows which buttons to push can, like this, create a trauma in a person who can be essential, sexually educated, embodied, comfortable with themselves, never having known that there was something that could go wrong in that. Body momentarily reacts, and then years later, they are in very pleasant, very comfortable, safe relationships, loving relationships. But for example, a female who underwent some even not so harsh, perhaps, how we would view it from the outside, not so harsh impact in this intimate sphere, will have her whole system of organs just squeeze. She would feel pain during intimacy. She would freeze during intimacy. She would not be able to behave naturally. So there would be some element of expectation. And that can happen years later. This traumatic response drags. And what we do, and though I give these examples because they're the easiest to visualize, because sexuality is the most tightly bound to our physicality, to our body. That's why I give those specifically intimate live examples to illustrate how it works. Because with the body, it's very easy to work in that sense. So how does it manifest? The trauma manifests that even when the circumstances are objectively safe, comfortable, loving, welcoming, everything squeezes, there is pain, there is a feeling of being shrunk, and every act of intimacy causes the woman to feel retraumatization because of repeating, basically replaying the scenario from that event. Before she can think and assess what's happening, her body already responds. Her nervous system is tuned to respond. It's a protection. But what happens? What happens? In a woman In this circumstance, instead of going and appreciating the work that her mind and body do together to protect her from what she experienced there and then, instead of that, she starts feeling hatred towards her organs. You're malfunctioning. You're not doing what I want. I'm here. I want to have an intimacy, but you're not delivering. My mind, why is it not working together with my body? Start scolding it because there is an expectation now. If instead of going into the body, appreciating, figuring out, and connecting with the trauma itself, with traumatic response itself, regarding it as the blessing, as the mechanism of saving you, if you go and start scolding your body and mind for what they're doing to protect you, then unfortunately you will enter the loop, this eternal cycle of retraumatization, and your body will be increasing the intensity of screaming at you, trying to make you hear those signs and pay attention to what's happening inside of you, trying to reconnect with that. Because trauma works in such a shady way. Oftentimes, it splits you from your body, the mechanism of defense. When you don't feel, when you can't feel, you cannot be hurt. Or you know how even not trauma, very strong emotional charge will make you much more tolerant to different influences. A good example, I think I gave it in the previous stream, a lady dancing in the club in very uncomfortable heels. She's dancing, she's in the music, she's in full emotional flow. She won't feel her feet. She will come home, she will pull those shoes off to realize how much she was actually enduring in that moment. But because there was such a strong emotional reaction to what was happening, this pain was numbed. And then if a person who experiences trauma, for example, starts going through some online advice, some or with women it happens, and I went through that myself. When a woman encounters that partner who you want to wish to never touch a woman ever again, when a woman encounters such partner, oftentimes they start trying to find the problem in themselves. The woman will start trying to find the problem in themselves, and online world offers such a plethora of information for how you should be a better woman, including all sorts of contortionist tips for how to exceed and supersede in the realm of the intimate life, further distancing the woman from her body. She now regards her body not as something that's part of her self-perception, but something that must perform, that's something that must deliver, something that is a resource, something that is a tool to achieve certain goals. For example, when women with some hurt attachment styles, they try to seek love, they try to get not even love, but they try to seek validation, they try to seek some whatever the void was. And they use their body, their sexuality as the transactional tool to buy that, instead of treating and feeling the body as the part of themselves, which are psyche and our body. They're indivisible, they're together. Psyche is body is materialized psyche. And when we don't recognize that, we're down to some adventure. So instead of going into the body, taking a pause, taking a break, reconnecting with whatever localization of that trauma would be, for example, some genital area, maybe a solar plexus area, instead of going there, relaxing there, trying to connect there, investigate what's needed. How do you actually heal? How do you want to live? How do you want to feel yourself? What kind of intimacy do you want? Instead, a woman can go to some very dangerous path, trying to find not how to cooperate with the body and mind, but how to find what's wrong with her. What's wrong with her? Nothing's wrong. Everything is adapting to the situation in which you need to be protected. That's how a lot of disease actually looks like. I studied nutrition very extensively for many years, different aspects of healthy lifestyle. And when you start analyzing the nature of disease, nature of metabolic disease, nature of adaptations, a lot of the things actually play the role. And when people try to identify what's up with them, when there's some malfunction in the body, instead of thinking why it is happening, what led to that, and how I can change my approach to align with my body, oftentimes they start treating their body as their enemy, like, body, I cannot do some fun things because of you, for example. Or they come into this perception that the body rebels against them, and they split up. So, be it trauma, be it maltreatment of the body through some lifestyle habits, it all comes to the same thing: segregation between mind and the body. And moreover, an introduction of a sliver that prevents us from comfortably going and actually embracing all of those features, being able to look at them as why are they there? What function do they play? How can I actually hear the calling of my body? How can I actually start being forward with my body? How can I actually help my body perform its function? Because while we're alive, our body and mind, they do everything to regenerate, to adapt, to make us survive, to make us live, and to make us thrive. The body wants to be healthy. Our mind wants to be healthy. And placed in some unfavorable conditions, they will adapt accordingly. Just as people who dump a bunch of sugar into their system, their body protects them by putting insulin, by cranking up insulin. Later, when this stops working for the body, then the cellular signaling starts changing. Person enters the metabolic mode in which sugar cannot be put in the system at all. That's enough, body cannot take any more, but the person will regard it as the body is doing something wrong, evil body. When in reality, it was abused and it created defense mechanisms. Stop doing it, stop doing it. And trauma works the same way in the shared realm, in psychophysical space, shared realm between mind and our body. Let me see the chat real quick. It sounds like trauma is being used as an excuse when we don't notice things going our way. It's, you see, it's a tricky thing, because when a person comes to someone who wants to help them, it's definitely not an excuse. Trauma used as excuses, there are scenarios in which people don't pursue help, for example, for that, right? And that's when they functionalize their trauma as a leverage, for example. Trauma victimhood can be turned into leverage. If a person especially is aware of them and knows how to use them, they functionalize it. Does it make them live happier? No. But if a person comes with request for help, if they want to live better, if they recognize that, then it is not an excuse, it's rather a desire to understand, and we need to just figure out how to work with that. It becomes a creative task to help the person identify the pillar or the support column that holds their roof. We just need to build another one. We need to understand what it's holding to either build another support system for them, such that they don't need to opt for this like dirty, poorly functioning thing, or we need to remove or defocus them, retrain their psyche to not need to hold on to something. So there are those two paths here. Yeah, it's a protection mechanism. It is. Pretty much get to know yourself. We get to know ourselves. It's a very general thing. To get to know ourselves, we sometimes need to go to even to extremes, perhaps, for some people, depending on the temperament, depending on the properties of the psyche, depending on the upbringing. Different people will have different requirements for getting to know themselves. It's not just self-reflection that will do that. Plus, also, sometimes we are running in scenarios. Brain's favorite feature is automations, because otherwise it's too energy greedy organ, our brain. And because of automations, we often run in circles. Run in circles, we enter cycles, and that's why. How do you know yourself? You need to go out of out of some cycle. You need to break the cycle to get out of it, to know what you really are. Because a lot of people have much more expansive pool of resource and psychological flexibility than they think, based on some daily exercise routine regimen that they follow for many years. And they have reactions are getting reinforced, because reactions often bring us the immediate instant gratification hormonal reward boost. And so we learn to fulfill our needs, emotional needs, through the same scenarios, unless regularly we do the revisions and we actually step out of our circles, out of our cycles, habitual system of life, and we're able to actually go and do broader introspection, expansive introspection. So that's the premise for that. And when a person brings this issue that they identify that their life is, sometimes it's not actually apparent that they have a trauma. They might not perceive it as such, or they might feel absolutely doomed. Like they bring this issue and they're like, what's up? Why is it always happening? Why this scenario is always ignited? Or you start paying attention when I work with clients. Start paying attention that this cycle repeats itself. What is it about? What is that? What are we achieving there? So we need to analyze that, because this is traumatic response, and why it becomes a source of unhappiness is because it no longer serves. For example, you grow up in some islands where people, they do diving for survival. They do diving. They live in those huts that sit on water. They barely walk. They're mostly diving. You bring them to the city and you tell them, survive. The environment is, first of all, they live on land. They don't have their water. They don't exercise certain things that they are accustomed to. Their survival skills are not applicable in this new environment. So what to do? If this person doesn't go through some new training, utilizing their neuroplasticity to readapt to a new environment, they're going to suffer in the city, because the city will be a totally foreign system for them, totally foreign habitat, and uh, everything that they've learned will be just burdening them. They will realize that every adaptation that they have is rather harmful. They want to do something what they feel is like being themselves, but it's not welcome there. So they will be like looked at, they will feel like no belonging and so on. Even example with immigration as well. All the adaptations, they don't work. All your social circles, they're irrelevant. You're thrown in a new environment and you need to speak a different language. You need to learn new behavioral codes. You need to likely you need to jump into a new profession, into a new professional circle. That's a huge amount of adaptations that we need to relearn. And this is a very important thing to keep in mind when we talk about recovery from trauma, that adaptations, we constantly build adaptations. We constantly relearn. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to every episode of discomfort, of suffering. Because a lot of them may be self-inflicted, because we're trying to live in a new environment, or we're trying to build a new life using old tools, old adaptations. And in that sense, part of the work with the trauma is also, after we've acknowledged how potentially horrible was what gave the person the trauma, is to neutralize this perception, to neutralize it, and to make it um, just a given for this person that you, from year, let's say 2014 to 2015, you were adapting to this partner who was mistreating you. You were adapting to that partner. Let's scan what adaptations did you develop through that. And with the client then, who identified that now, for example, they have a fantastic boyfriend who treats them really well, treats her really well. She's unable to feel pleasure, she's unable to feel comfortable, she's unable to fully feel in love, fully feel embodied. Something is always off. So what we do, we go back to that period, 2014, 2015. We analyze what did this person, what did this woman adapt to in that span, in that time span. And we start recognizing, okay, how did your body adapt to it? Let's look. What tools did your body employ? What emergency tools? Because Homo sapiens, I took the course in physical rehabilitation and fitness, specifically fitness nutrition and fitness physiology, and we were studying that human body is actually a super machine. It has so many extra features that most people will not be able to use most of their potential, most of their recovery potential. And our body, our mind, they're incredibly resilient. They're incredibly resourceful, incredibly powerful machine for survival. So Homo sapiens is a crazy species. So we need to scan, how did this incredible machine adapt itself to that jerk, let's say, some like very unhappy, miserable jerk who was there playing some role in your development, in your personal evolution, let's say, at that point. So how did it play out? What happened to your body? Did your reproductive system try to close itself because it felt the threat? Did you live in a perpetual stress from 2014 to 2015? And that perpetual stress, how did it influence the rest of your body? How did it work for you? Where did you carry tension? Maybe the whole belly of that woman is locked. She was not breathing. She lost an ability to breathe fully. Maybe she was body shamed for something absolutely pointless, and started hiding her chest, started squeezing her chest as well, developed poor posture, developed some, I don't know, headache, chronic headaches. Maybe because of that stress, hormonal system went out of alignment. Periods became very painful. When periods are painful, phobia of periods begins. And then also when it's very painful, the body becomes protected too. So the whole body turns into this knot. And then this woman was living this way, thinking that she is at fault, with all of these symptoms, and also blaming her body for adapting to that dysfunction. So we scan all these things. Then also psychological things. We're not going to regard them as this is you now. No, we're going to take it out. We're going to take all of the newly developed beliefs, ideas that this lady developed from 2014 to 2015, being in this dysfunctional relationship. We're going to write down what ideas did you learn back then? How did your brain change its cartoons, its library of its cartoons? What cartoons were uploaded to your brain in that period? Let's see. So we write them down as separate things that are divided from the concept of self, from self-perception. Hello, everyone. The stuff you're speaking about is important stuff. The fact you can speak so eloquently in different languages is impressive as hell. You're also pretty, obviously. Thank you so much, Nikkei. Really appreciate it. So we take that we wrote down all of the adaptations that body developed. We take all of the adaptations that the mind developed as some ideas, and we start looking at them from the outside. How can we work with them? Because our mind and our body, they're pristine. They're always pristine. We can always connect with them, and when we biochemically can relax, go into some safe space, they will be gradually unfolding. Imagine the analogy of this. This nonsense, you were like this, but then the traumatic event did this. Did this piece of paper disappear? This piece of paper didn't disappear. It just deformed. And this deformation, given the right conditions, when we start teaching the person how to relax, how to find this restful, safe space, starts slowly unfolding into its previous shape. And we clear it more and more. Until it's back to pretty much where it was, but with a little bit of life experience, let's say. So we make all those things. We start looking at them as tools. We start recognizing them as tools, adaptations, not as me. It's not me. It's not me. If I go back to me and I actually take care of the needs of my body instead of scolding my body, instead of using this as professional sports activity, but professional sports attitude towards our body to push it into function, to push it, to press it into doing what I want. If we employ this modern economy style of behavior with achieve and hyperachieve, then our body will be going into this dysfunction more and more. It will be building just more and more adaptations because now it needs to protect itself from your influences that go against its needs. So when we go in, when we start showing our body this little paradise, this little space, controllable space, safe space, in which we give it a chance to get reacquainted with itself, to remember how it is to be itself, we start nurturing the part that is healthy, that is wholesome, that is connected. And when we start from this space, we slowly start growing the scope of actions that bring us, that build life around us, in accordance to this authentic self, this wholesome, integrated, authentic self. When we start taking actions and our life starts reframing itself back to this function, we also develop healthy boundaries because now we know, now we have an experience. We have experience, and based on this experience we can create our own law, in which, for example, previously this innocent, beautiful, pure thing was not protected well. Now I know I fell from Garden of Eden. I know the vulnerability in the Garden of Eden. If it's possible to escape the Garden of Eden, then it was vulnerable, and now I know where the vulnerability is. I fell through that hole. Now I can patch it. I patch that hole, I return to the Garden of Eden, and I point, I'm like, look, there's a hole, let's patch it. Now I know where it is. We patch this hole, and we start building our framework of life in which this retraumatization is impossible. But it all begins with going inside first and addressing the needs of the body, meeting the body again without the judgmental glance, without the judgmental outlook, without the eyes of the person who was in the most vulnerable, tender moment, who seeded this judge inside of you. Without that, just pure body, pure psyche, pure relaxation. This is where Tantra becomes a very powerful tool. Because we work with the body, we work with the mind, we don't divide the two, and we find the clues in the world of our imagination, we find the clues in the world of our psyche, the most organic native tools. And we can use all of the imagery that's in here and the native to our mind for finding the ways out. How do I return back to myself? And how do I build this world? How do I build these boundaries? How do I write my new constitution, my new law, my personal law? And empowered, I'm moving on to the new life. Let's see. Thank you, guys. Breathing with relaxation is a good way to relieve stress. Yes, for sure. Reactive versus active. Somewhat. I can imagine you being in the Garden of Eden. Hehe. She said the other day the Garden of Eden never existed. I don't know what you're talking about. All my live streams are posted. This is what relationship is like when you really start to listen. I'm actually attracted to how you lecture the lessons. Maybe it's the Russian accent. Thank you, Ezra. Ezra, I plan to conduct a workshop on some tantric tool. If you want to join rawformoflife.com, I have registration form there. Note that I'm keeping up so far. Thank you, Kiva. Thank you, everyone, for your kind words. I'll go continue now. So, how does it achieved? You may ask me, what to do with all of that? How do you reconnect with your body? How do you reconnect with your mind? How do you relax? What is that? Depending on what happened, where the trauma is localized, and that can be found in particular in meditations, or it can be found in through relaxation practices and scanning your body for what residual tension constitutes, where it's located. You can connect with it, and you can think. Inside of the meditation, actually, you can actually very clearly hear what your body actually tries to tell you. I say actually too much, sorry. So, for example, your jaw is very tense. You go into meditation, and you can identify, okay, what does it symbolize for me? What does it carry? If you try to remember, if you try to tense it, or if you try to remember how it's tense, or if right now it is tense, inside of a meditation in which you're more or less relaxed and you can focus inside of your body, you may ask yourself, and you can receive the answer from your body, what does it represent? What event of your life got seated as a tension in your jaw? Or if it is sexual trauma, you can do those rituals, you can do meditations that are focused on the body. You can wake up every morning and perform meditations with your pelvic floor. You can gently apply your hand there. You can work with partner on that. If you want to rebuild this intimacy, if you want to rebuild this safe attitude in intimacy, if you're with adequate, good partner who loves you, who cares about you, you can ask your partner to be present for that, to also allow your body to get reacquainted with the touch and make it safe. Create this space, controllable space, safe, controllable space for you to get reacquainted with stimuli, to get reacquainted with the things that you envision for yourself. The contact, the touch, the presence of somebody else. How to create controllable environment, I talked about in other streams. Here I will just recap. Creation of controlled environment can be as simple as setting an alarm for a couple of minutes and declaring that for the next 2 minutes, as this I surrender my control to this alarm, and I'm going to, for the time being of this alarm, I'm going to be focusing on this one thing, for example. It can be creation of actual physical space, some area, mental space, declaration, anything, agreement with others, whatever is a priority, whatever tools work for you. But you create a safe space in which you slowly start reacquainting yourself with the new or old forgotten experiences, pre-trauma, let's say, or something new that you want to learn, that will bring you to what you want, to what experiences you want. And so you start connecting with those body parts. Wherever you find tension, wherever you want to relax, you give yourself gentle massage, only following the cues that your body sends, not forcing anything, not pushing anything, operating under the certain like pain level if there is a lot of tension in your body. Do it through meditation. Perfect time is in the morning while you're waking up or before bed. And you're giving it intention for something good, to soften up, to relax, to embrace the glow, to embrace the pulse of life. Because whatever is tense doesn't allow the pulse of life to be felt through it. It's like half dead, it's numb area. So you focus on allowing the pulse of life to be conducted through that body part, wherever you store this traumatic response. There are techniques for intimate self-massage if we talk about sexual trauma. But even in the very beginning, if there is a way to just reconnect with it, to make it feel heard. And you do it gently, warmly, and you're focusing on bringing this pulse of life there. Instead of forcing, instead of feeling it being, for example, with the jaw, you're in force and you're like, tension, pain. Try to soften in it and feel it from within. Not from the hand that presses until the pain response comes. You press gently and you focus on the feeling from within. And the pulse, in the point of contact, here, the pulse. You focus on it and you let it grow. You let this supple feeling of pulse of life to grow as you soften into the site of tension. This is this first gentle step that you can employ to reacquaint yourself with your body, to reconnect with your body on your body's terms. What does it want? And it wants to be heard. It wants to feel safe. It wants to feel comfortable. And it wants this pulse of life. Subscribed. I want to watch the workshop. Thank you, Ezra. It's on my website. There's not many details yet. If you can do that, I'll be sending information when I gather maybe a couple more people for the workshop. Meditations can help relax the body and get rid of the tension. Yes, and not only get rid of the tension, some tension you cannot get rid of in the meditation. But when you overall are relaxed, you know where you're still tense. Because right now, like in the middle, for example, I'm giving a speech right now. Right this moment, I need to scan my entire body. Imagine amidst the speech, some activity. My brain is very busy right now. If I try to scan my entire body, I will probably locate, okay, my lower belly right now is a little bit tense. Other spots, I don't know. I need to think about it. If I start focusing, if I start relaxing overall, and then I start scanning my body, going inside a little bit, then I can be like, okay, maybe around the neck a little bit. Then my legs are doing whatever. I don't even control them right now. So you need to go into this relaxed overall state as much as you can, and then you can identify where the sites are that still remain under tension. Present support is effective, yes. I used to practice the Russian system for breathing, where you focus your breath on specific body areas. I didn't know that it was Russian, but yes, indeed, it's actually a very, very effective tool when you're breathing into certain body parts or through them, in and out. Okay, got it. Not all tension, but enough to identify the tensions that haven't relaxed. Yes. Thank you, madam. Okay, thank you. Yeah, but breath in specific body areas is a very fascinating tool, actually. I love doing that too. Cool to know that it's Russian. So, then, when we started reconnecting, hi Shiki, I hope you're too. So, when we started reconnecting through simple touch, as EDZ mentioned, breathing into the body part, they can be combined together when you're both applying the touch to the tense part and then breathing into it. When you've done that, a more energetic method of relieving those, of reconnecting with your body authentically, can be movement therapy. And we're not talking about when you have a mirror, when you're doing all that in the mirror, not with the phone, when you are putting up a camera or low-key trying to record a dance for TikTok or Instagram. It's not about that. We're talking about the dance that is so primal, that becomes, that dissociates and at the same time integrates you so much that you lose the boundary between your mind, you lose the boundary between your mind and your body. You in general just enter this swirl of existence, or you are playing certain, like you dump feelings, you dump some emotions that were stored in you through this dance. This dance is your private thing that is not, Joshkata, go ahead and leave the chat. When this dance is the amalgam of your entire experience. You don't think of this dance as an art piece. You don't think of how this dance looks. You don't think how you express yourself. You don't. At that point, you're just integrating in this movement. You're following. This is another practice in which your body takes the lead, in which your body drives you. You can play some beat. You can play some neutral song that doesn't carry, perhaps, much lyrical meaning. Perhaps it would be good if it was the song in the language which you don't understand. Something just to give you the rhythm that will get your body in this movement. And you start this dance fully following your body. Clothes or no clothes, up to you. Maybe you want to rip your clothes as a symbol. Maybe you want to invite an object into this dance. Maybe you want to wrap your fist with something as a symbol of you not being able to do anything. And then you rip it up. Maybe you want to just crawl on the floor like an animal, like a crazy, desperate animal. Maybe you want to dance around the chair. It can be anything. There are no rules, except for the rule to not regard yourselves from outside. It's purely from your body. You enter this motion trance, and this motion trance, your body gets the chance to reconnect with your psyche. It's a very powerful technique in which you need to dump all of the prohibitions, all taboos, anything that could limit your, not even expression. I don't want to call it an expression. This dance is not expression. It's not outwards. You are in the field. You are entangled in this field. And you're just letting it happen without any judgment, observation. And it's, the dance is an arbitrary word. As I mentioned, you can be rolling on the floor. You can be moaning on the floor. What is that animalistic part? What is that? Who knows? We don't need to know. Maybe you want to touch yourself. Maybe you want to pinch yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. you are, what was I saying? I was saying that you can be touching yourself, pinching yourself. Maybe you want to paint this symbol of, I want to rip these pieces out of myself. What is that? Maybe you're wearing some costume. Maybe this trauma, maybe something that happened to you. Maybe all of those adaptations, all of that burden that you carry, maybe you symbolically want to rip it out of you. You want to grab it, you want to pull it. Maybe you will notice, and actually why this work is interesting with Tantra therapists is because Tantra therapists will be there as a silent observer, taking notes of the patterns. Maybe you will be swirling in one direction, not the other. Maybe you will be leaning in one side and not the other. Maybe there will be some imbalances. Perhaps, again, you will be avoiding some body part. I could do it. I trained to do meditation and observation simultaneously. When you are in the process, though, it's very nice to have someone watching you, to have someone guiding you. Not guiding, but just like taking note of all those things. Because what if a person who is performing this barbaric, perhaps, looking dance, what if person touches themselves everywhere, but not around their lower belly, not around their genitalia? What if they're just deliberately avoiding this area? What does it tell us? That perhaps there is something going on that brings this conflict. This body part is not integrated in the body. Or perhaps if a person is given an object and we observe them in this dance, how will they interact with that object? What will it be? What does this object symbolize? So many interesting things. But the beginning part that we target specifically, perhaps for some self-help, for the trauma resolution, especially the trauma that found its imprint, made an imprint in the body, is to just go into this dance and make sure, focusing on one thing in the beginning, to not allow yourself any external glance from yourself. And when you're not judging that this is a repetitive, boring move, and I went to dance school as a child, I should be doing more of these elements instead of just twirling like this. Because I need diversity, I need more of an interesting pattern of my choreography. You're not choreographing yourself. Again, it's just to let your body move and express, not express it to yourself, just live through. Let's do not express, live through the experiences that it craves. Because right now, you're probably sitting. It's not what your body, I can bet a lot, it's not what your body wants to do right now. It's not. Through this dance, you will find what it is your body really wants. But it's not right now. It's not sitting. Perhaps you have much more energy. You want to channel your thoughts, even your thoughts right now. What you're writing in the chat right now, those thoughts likely want to be communicated through some movement. There is a movement that your body can do for this thought. Well, the more I listen, the more it's like quality therapeutic discussions. Thank you, Ezra. Shuriken? Hello, sister. I'm headed out for a walk, so can stay, but maybe back later. Sure. Dancing is actually a good method for expressing. I like this example. Thank you, Kiva. Good. I really want you to try. And actually, I probably myself would want to do it if I find a moment tonight. I had quite a busy day today earlier. Oh, it was a little bit crazy. There are some logistics, basically, I need to work on. So that's why I started the stream a little bit later today. So now that we took this break, the dance. And then we can connect to it a couple of more practices. When we do actual body focused work, when we allow our body to communicate to us, we show our body that this space, please talk to me, I can hear you, I can listen to you. We can also include some simple practices. For example, again, just regulating our nervous system, something that we start off in Tantra. We start with practices in which we can seed emotions into our body. We can see how our body responds to us experiencing or creating emotions, feelings. We can create the domain in which we allow our body to enjoy. Very like tiny little butterfly wing sensations that we can enjoy in a timed fashion, very controllable, soft fashion, to allow the body the taste and our nervous system the taste for how it is to rejoice, to get this moment, to get this idea seeded into us. These practices were discussed in previous live streams. And then we move on to visualization practices, in which, when we connected with the body, we need to move forward. We cannot. Now, of course, we'll have different demand for life from the new place, from when we connect with our body. When we find this new ground, when we start the dialogue, this gentle conversation, and not even dialogue, but reunion with our body, let's word as reunion, recollection, our own recollection, we need to pave the new path. How are we going to pave a new path? How are we going to build a new law? You are the governor of your life, and you need to establish the rules and perception, some internal, emotionally also integrated rules for how you want to proceed with that. To proceed with that, we can do an array of meditations. First, you can of course do some writing down your desires, like in not compulsive fashion, but when you're assigned some ridiculous number of desires to write. For example, I'll tell you to write down 200 desires, 200 wants. After 5 wants, you will be like, okay, it's hard. After 10 wants, you will be like, I want more. And then, when you're pushed beyond the limits of some like mundane things, your brain will start generating desires. You write desires, and then from those desires, from analyzing them later, because you will go into the trance of writing that, you will literally show to your body that now I can hear you. When you're doing this practice of writing down all of your desires, you're uncomfortable, because if you were the one who was constantly pushing their boundaries inwards, who went through this adaptation, who like outsourced their body because the body was deemed to be bad, dysfunctional, who was observing the body as the judge, who was like trying to push themselves into some standards because some traumatization happened. Now, you are showing your body, your brain, that now we can actually focus on our desires. I actually can desire. And when you're writing that, your authority is like, for example, the Tantra therapist says, write 200 desires, please. This is your authority. You can be as upset at Tantra therapist as possible for giving you this assignment. So you're upset, all of that thing goes to the Tantra therapist. You outsource that. And all you're presented with is the need to sit and listen to your body. And after some time, when you started listening to your body, you start actually receiving those signs. Some of them can be repeated. I remember revisiting my desires, list of desires. One thing was 3 times there. One thing I wrote 3 times in this half trance while I was writing it. In that little bit altered state in which I'm fully focusing from within, those like desires from within. I noticed that one theme was repeated. And then, when I started practicing with my clients usually have an electronic diary. I create Google Sheets in which all the progress, all the practices All of the lists are stored, and we can both access and revisit it. And I gave an assignment, and my client gave a list, and I'm reading, and I'm like, oh my god, because they're also repeated things. So from them, you can determine the core desires, and then by analyzing that, you generate the portrait of how you want to proceed. What are the things that you really want? And it's funny because, yeah, there will be things that likely will be repeated in some way. Now, you build this framework, and also there will be such a moment in which we'll need to opt for a very interesting set of meditations. You know how I introduced, I don't remember in which live stream it was, in which webinar it was, but I was talking about this concept of divine union. Maybe it was in 13 Steps of Tantra video. One of the steps down the road, there is this divine union. It's a union of opposites, no, feminine, masculine entities that together in their union and ecstasy create the waves of pulse of life, waves of creation. Through that image, through this concept, you can start rewriting and generating the best, most desired, the most beautiful, the most love-infused representations of what you want in your life, bypassing the words even. So you can heal the experiences. You can find through the image of your super desired lover that you would want, through the image of the divine union, through this beautiful harmony of creation, you can start designing what it is you truly desire and actually envision it and live through it in the meditations. And of course, through the whole course of this work, you are expanding on your connection with your body. You are working on relieving those tensions, perhaps also introducing your partner to that work. If your partner is the one that you want to be with, if you feel safe with them, you gradually turn all of those traumatic things into interpersonal relationships, agreeing with your partner that this is happening, communicating. This is happening to me in my life. I want your cooperation. So in this circumstance, in this situation, I want to respond this and this way, or do this and this, or help me with that. Or we need to stay away from these experiences, or I want us to create this like 10 minutes in which we're doing this and this. So you gradually, when you feel safe with yourself, safe and comfortable with your own body, you gradually move it into interpersonal relationships, safe attachments. And you start practicing that, how your actions, how your new self-perception plays with other people, through which you will see how it starts influencing the world. You will receive a mirror. Through that, you will feel empowered to actually bring this experience, to bring your new adaptations, new self-perception into the bigger world. And this is how your path will be paved. So in a nutshell, this is the therapy of trauma in general, with examples that I gave, focused on sexual or intimacy-related events, adaptations, dysfunctional adaptations. Not dysfunctional now, they're quite functional back then. But they can be extrapolated to a whole multitude of things, including childhood trauma, in which, for example, a child adapts to certain behavioral patterns that allowed them to kind of control, perhaps just a little bit control, a volatile, aggressive parent, or to minimize the incidences of domestic violence and stuff like that. So these things are all the same. Why I took sexual trauma, again, I just want to reiterate that. It's not the exclusive thing for Tantra. Not the thing that exclusive, the thing that only that thing can be treated with Tantra. No, it's just an example because it usually manifests very brightly in a very specific body part. So that's why it's a little bit perhaps more easy to illustrate how this work can start through connection with the body. But other things can be scanned just as well. To recap, we need to first, when we identify that there's some dysfunction that prevents you from, some adaptation that prevents you from living comfortably well in accordance to how you want to live and realize yourself in the world, you identify that there's some dysfunctional adaptation that you have, and then you start, through that you separate yourself first of all, that there's you, untainted pure you, that always was and always is, but there are adaptations. We identify the adaptations that were there, we discuss them, we understand them, how they happened, and so on. Then we go into the body. We go and work with the body, and we reconnect with the body. We start this in work from within, hearing the body, giving it attention, letting it speak, letting the tensions to dissolve gradually without any push, without any pressure. We gradually go from within the body, healing locally, and whatever residual things also compensate for that tension, this trauma seated in the body. And then we also start building our new ways of reconnection, communication with our body through the dance, motion therapy, movement therapy. That can be done on your own if you want to just express yourself, or it can be done both diagnostically and therapeutically with a therapist who will be supervising you, observing you, going through this movement dance therapy. Then we are healing the concepts surrounding the world such that we're not influenced by that all men are filthy idiots and so on, because we underwent certain traumatic events. So we need to heal our internal image of a man, for example, if there was some event. And then we build the framework of our desires, and we start moving our experiences, our healing into interpersonal relationships, finding allies who are cooperating with us. We find our leadership, and we find a safe space from which we can start sharing our new self perception into the bigger world. So this is how it works. Now I want to see the chat, and I'm open for your questions. Designing and expanding through meditation. Okay, so let's see. I skipped one. As we go through the square window. No worries, madam. Later, not the stream is much appreciated. Thank you, Kiva. Do we have a you ever watch Play School? No. Do we have a discussion about the possibility of telepathy or similar ability, and can you talk about quantum pseudo-telepathy? Not sure. I need to revisit that topic if you don't mind. More like, why does enough people watch this? You'd make a good primary school teacher. I worked with children in the past. Actually, was really good at it, but I don't. I want to work on slightly different topics, because primary school teachers, I can't find fascination telling the same subjects over and over and over and over. I spent 20 years in school studying physics and math, and I'm I don't look forward to that. 201 desires is a lot. Yes, it is. I have one primary desire: to be able to read minds and speak through thought. Become an NFJ for a day, Ezra. You will still change your mind very quickly. Yeah, by the way, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's this adaptation from childhood, I think, when you learn to perceive the mood of your parent by the sound of how they approach the building. It's the super sensitivity to very minute changes in the state of a person across from you in the room or in the other room in the apartment. Hello, David. INFJ, I think it's there's typology of people based on their um, features. You can look it up, I guess. Most male desires are primal. I don't know, it is that. I don't know. I guess I was. It depends. You say most of male desires are primal. I can't agree with that. I was always surrounded by very interesting men with very big ambitions, so I cannot say that. Primal being everything might be considered primal on the other hand, because there's a common notion that everything, humans are separate from nature, humans are nature. So everything we do in essence is primal, even our creativity, curiosity, our creative self-expression is primal, if it boils down to that. But we need to determine what primal is, because humans as rooted in nature, entities as anything that comes from natural world, they are going to be primal in every single expression, as complex as it can be. Designing and expanding through meditation. Yes. Yeah, I get you now. Okay. I'm still looking for big. Okay. Big Ted and Little Ted beside or behind her. Great understandable examples. Thank you, Kiva. I'm glad it hit the spot. But not everyone responds to trauma in the same way. In childhood, this makes way for the different personality developments. Yeah, it's fair. I mean, that's I'm giving examples. I cannot tell you all of the examples in the world. Obviously, I think some things just suffice for illustration, but I don't say that this what I'm saying is a universal law that you need to stretch on just anything. And then personality type is not. Personality type is something you're born with. Personality development, yeah, it can pivot, but it's adaptation. And you can functionalize any personality type. You can functionalize it. You're usually, it just so happens that people usually have biology and development kind of going in accordance with each other. So you have psychological resource and biological resource tied together to give you the best outcome, best survivability. So whatever personality type you're born with naturally through like genetics, then upbringing, yes, it can contribute some, but your core will not be changed. So that's important to understand too. And you can also functionalize everything. You can readapt. Yes, there are some milestones. Yes, there are some fixations. We're making them functional. Even if it is, I don't know, anything can be turned into profession virtually. Anything can be turned into creative realization and pursuits. Now you sound like a midwife. I don't know how midwives sound. I mean, what's so different about midwives? You'd make a beautiful partner. Thank you, Ruben. So to reconnect with the body, we have to identify the tensions, then proceed through movement of healing. Yes. The pause gives me time to catch up with writing. Good. It is that what I meant by primal is that males see beauty and have primal nature to mate. No, besides mating, come on. I don't know where you meet all these men. Men are so much more complex. They're so much more diverse. Again, my content also probably won't attract certain people, and my projection also probably won't attract people who only want to mate. It's a natural desire, but saying that it's the only desire, I think, is a fallacy. I disagree with that. Men can be very interesting. They can have both. It's also, by the way, in this reasoning, I hear, by the way, a little bit of conflict that it will be either or, and one is given a priority. It's rare that, of course, it's what happens oftentimes. We observe that people say, for example, good example will be that um, I'm a good mother, so what does my husband want from me? I'm being a good mother. And woman, for example, will not be uh, even open to the idea that she's also a wife or mistress. So this is one of the examples that comes to my mind because it's something that happens, at least in Russian culture. That's what I heard a lot. That there is kind of like trade of the roles. Like I was that, and now I choose to be this. Instead of being and this, and this, and this, and this. Or also in engineering, I was catching myself. For example, it felt awkward putting makeup on. I like to look pretty, but I'm an engineer, and my surroundings are hardcore. And it was really strange to appear with my other side, to self represent in a way that was not organic with the environment. Even though, I mean, I did it regardless. It was one of the things where I was like, why? It makes no sense. I spend most of my time at work, and I want to represent myself in the way I feel, and not go to like, oh, in the extreme, but certain like imagery things. Why do I need to change my idea of myself to fit in somewhere where it's not even needed? It's one of those imaginary social contracts. Nobody demands that. It's literally just me observing and then thinking, assuming that the environment will be in some way against that. I can be both. Or because I'm an engineer, now I need to, I don't know, spend my leisure time laying in front of TV with a beer and embracing some things that I don't care about. No, I will be doing my artistic things, even though I'm both engineer, I'm an artist. I am very interested in culture, I'm very interested in psychology, I'm very interested in my mental development, sensual development. So it all coexists. I don't like the dichotomy when, like, only that, for example. Very horny, let's say, men, they also can be very successful, um, very greedy, they can be very realized in the world. They can also be horny and they can also be very gentle. That combination also works wonderfully. So it's not either or. It's a palette. It's a whole beautiful palette, all colors. All right, I'm okay. I'm caught up. Good. Are you familiar with Neri Oxman and her work on nature's role in reshaping our future and its importance in our biological vibration connection to nature? Not Ezra. I'm not familiar. Sorry. We can be very flipping boring, but my kids laugh at me, so that makes me happy. Good. Shiki, I completely relate as a female software developer that loves everything girly. Yeah. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to dress like Paris Hilton and carry a little dog around. I was like, because I like to play with human stereotypes. It's funny how people assume that certain costume, that certain appearance, and like attributes, they just make you automatically belong to a certain group. People love costumes, actually. But sometimes it breaks, you know? Sometimes you become that specimen who can do it all, who can embrace it all. And I felt like just doing that, you know? To just like play with humans' minds. Be this bimbo, bimbo engineer would be cool. What do you think about the consciousness of AI? I don't know. I don't think about it. You like to play with human stereotypes. I like to play Fortnite. Sure. I'm a man. I'm not thinking about sex all the time. Thank you for pitching in, Leap. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That yeah, there are so many things a man can be thinking about. Hello. Yet at the same time, I mean, yeah, sex is sexuality. Sexuality in itself is a comprehensive thing. I mean, we can feel it as like urge to have an act, or we can have sexuality in everything around us. The world around us is sexual. It's always pulsing, it's always living, it's always breathing, it's always moving. That's sexuality. That's sex. Sex is a physical act, as is a just a physical manifestation of that thing for a specific purpose. So it's sexuality on the one hand can be segregated into its own thing, or we can enliven everything with it. Do not use AI in engineering. I don't work in engineering anymore. I quit when it was only starting to develop. You should experiment, it's fun. Women get completely different treatment depending on how they present themselves. Yeah, I know that. I wore short hair when I was in my undergrad and in high school, and I was called a male name. Short hair, right? like this. Short hair. I had beautiful actually. I was dressing very feminine. I super loved. I always wore heels. I wore super feminine clothes, makeup every day, but short hair. Then my hair grows. I decided to grow it out when I was 19. My hair grows to this. Guys started calling me my female name and started calling me princess. They grew like this. Everybody just started going nuts about me. It was so funny. Literally, the hair length changed. And most guys, not all of them, they started paying attention to me as a woman. Nothing changed. I, in fact, started wearing less makeup. I started being more frivolous with my clothes. But the hair length, that's it. The Tantra thing can be very interesting and come at moments when you least expected it. What do you mean by that? When did Tantra come to you? When you least expected it? Joan of Arc. Juan of Arc would be funny. Imagine somebody makes a movie, Juan of Arc, some comedy spin off of that story. So, Hippocrates. How did Tantra come to you? You're great, thank you, KA, and more symbols. I'm accepting questions. Tantra came as a psychotherapy session. Tantra, what? It's Tantra therapy. It's actually modern psychotherapy is largely based on the findings that were made by tantrikas back 800 years ago. So it's modern psychotherapy is development of that in its own form. Okay, and more symbols. Yeah, just don't worry. Um, not psycho, physiotherapy. Sorry, physiotherapy session. What do you mean physiotherapy? Physical therapy. Have you studied the Egyptian mysteries? They used a lot of dance to access higher forms of consciousness. I know that in Turkey they have traditional dance when they spin. Higher states of consciousness. What are higher states of consciousness? What are they? Higher state of consciousness as pure embodiment. I understand that. Other things I don't know, because we can get into this mystical plane in which people start using it for harvesting some mystical experiences, getting like detached from reality, building some framework of things of an illusionary world, start taking substances to get themselves more spiritual thrill, and that all turns into this escapism like we discussed in the previous stream, and that's not necessarily good. So for me, it's dance as a form of accessing higher states of consciousness. I would reward it even not higher state of consciousness, but just pure state of consciousness, where everything is embodied, where everything is in union. So I would word it this way. Kaizen. The philosophy of getting 1% better each day, the idea of being unstoppable as opposed to invincible, is my icon. So it's basically consistency. Where the body acts as a frequency in tune with the universal frequency. What is universal frequency? Yes, physical therapy in a Pilates session, one-to-one. How? How did it become Pilates? I'm pretty sure I never showed you a single exercise or exercised in this stream. So universal frequency, what is that? Like zero vibration? Half of Planck's constant. What? What is that? No, wasn't with you, girl. Back in the past. I'm lost. I'm lost. Sorry. Everything is motion, nothing is still. When you dance, you're acting in tune with motion that is always in motion. When you're dancing, you are. What happens when you're dancing? Your brain activity perhaps goes into that peaceful mode of operation, okay? Then your body receives a lot of blood flow, your lymph flows, so everything gets oxygenated, okay? So that's what happens on the biochemical level when we dance. Then, when we get oxygenated, a lot of the metabolic reactions go really well. We start the processes of some cellular cleaning. Then our nervous system regulates. We also, when we dance, when we move, we reactivate our fascia. We remove some fibrosis, fibrotic tissues. So all of that improves the blood flow through the areas that we're not receiving it chronically. Then our spine all gets plumped, and especially when we do some movements like that, all our joints get lubrication, our bones start receiving nutrition and getting remineralized because we promote this osmotic action on the bone to draw minerals in the bone, promote bone remodeling. Then what else happens? Our breathing also, our breathing pattern changes. We also dump a lot of tension from our body. And that's what happens in real world, okay? When we dance. So uh, when we think about accessing higher states of consciousness and doing all of these things out there, I prefer the approach of getting grounded and not float away somewhere in space when we start inventing some concepts. Because when we start stretching some higher meanings to certain things instead of again experiencing them. We had a very fun debate recently when I had conversation in the chat and the live stream with someone. And we had this debate. The person really wanted something big and grand to give them some blueprint for something. And we were talking about, like, why not just go in your body? Why not just go see what you want? Why do you need some blueprint for that? So that was the conversation. And when we fly out there, there's the danger of also losing connection with yourself. When you start giving it some concept, when you start driving it through some external concept, such as like some transactional thing that I will receive some higher consciousness, whatever it means. There is a lot of escapism in that higher consciousness. There is a lot of desire to flee the earth, so to speak, in that thing, instead of facing reality. What we're doing in this dance, how we're achieving this higher state of consciousness, is we actually face the reality as much as possible. We face it, and we're flesh, we are our mind, our breath, the pulse of life, and the ecstasy of life, I would say. That's how I would reframe it. I'm not claiming that what you meant. I'm not claiming that what I was addressing was exactly what you meant, but it was just side tangent, important thing, such that we don't go into this philosophy necessarily, something separate from actual reality of our experiences. So, let me see. Right, I need to drink. Good luck. Thank you, Hippocrates. If you were to imagine that consciousness looks like, how would you describe it? Consciousness, if I was to imagine, let me focus. I don't know what happens to me when I start focusing on the consciousness itself. It's usually just this, just some beaming energy. For some reason, I picture it specifically here, and it comes here, like this. Just like briefly try to meditate on it. That's how it's perceived. But also in the works, by the way, when we do walk through the psyche, that coupled guided meditation, or not guided, it's coupled feedback meditation. Usually it is some space. So the space of the psyche usually is actually materialized in the imagery as a actual physical space. That's when we do all the wandering. But just pure consciousness is like just awareness, feeling of connection. Is that how is it for you, Ezra? Is where string theory is from? It's where string theory is from. Okay. It's again we're talking about different scale of phenomena. Human is, is such a wave packet that you will spend eternity turning it into the level of physical, um, a physical, how to say, physical model. To describe a person, you see, you can describe a person when human, just you see human walking on the sidewalk. To describe their movement, relevant movement, you will use kinetics, mechanical chapter of kinetics. If you want to describe human movement as the human walks, now you will be using mechanics of different kind. You will be looking at relative movement of limbs relatively to the body, for example. So the function will become more complex. Now, if you want to describe a human as a biochemical system, you are starting to work with chemical reactions. So you go level deeper, and then the scale of computation will be so immense. Now, if you go break down human from from some, like, let's say, chemical physics, chemistry, biochemistry, if you break it down to the particle level, molecular, not molecular, atomic level, that will be next level. Then how atoms are bound into molecules. Then you can go into quantum physics. Then you can go into elementary particles. From elementary particles, we go into wave physics. And now, to describe a human through wave physics, we need some supermodel for that. And to describe a human to describe a human through the claws of the wave physics, it's an insanely difficult problem, insanely computationally intense problem. So it's just not reasonable for most applications, but of course there is something to it. But all of the human systems, all of the human organs, they largely operate at a little bit higher level, electromagnetic level. That's where we can actually probably draw some conclusions, build some reasonable models. Electromagnetic level, when we don't regard every single wave that constitutes every atom in human body, but when we look at their collective action. You become one with the universal motion. Is Tantra basically learning to be comfortable with your own sexuality through meditation and breathing? No, sexuality in the grand term, in the big perception of sexuality, when it is your entire libidinous energy as opposed to martido, right? We have libido and we have martido. Martido is death, stillness. Libido is vitality. Sexuality is vitality. In that sense, yes, you get in tune with your vitality. And you come to terms, then it also, not you just, it's not that you are on your own comfortable with your own libido. It is how that also translates into your relationships with the world, how you regard the world, your creative force being what you give to the world. It becomes quite both interpersonal and transpersonal. Higher states of consciousness requires initiation, invitation. I've never done, so maybe it's speculation. I'm triathlete, so I go around marathons and I enter the higher consciousness state. It's euphoric. Understandable. Listen to you talk for hours. You're brilliant. Thank you so much, Leap. If you have any questions or topic proposals, please drop them in the comment. I think string theory is more of a conscious connection between two entities that create harmony. Words paired with body movement linked to other well-described profound words. Sure. Marathon versus actually dancing. Marathon allows you, see, when you're running, you are running in a way that your body always moves in a certain pattern. There's no liberty to actually express yourself fully. Understand the euphoria. Euphoria often happens through that in The moment is like runner's high, right? It's when you've been running so much, your body thinks that you are in deep stress, so it needs to help. So it sends hormones to salvage you. Do exercise. I do exercise, but not. I don't have a particular system for exercises. I just have a set of essential exercise and stretches that I've been doing for years. So it's part of my life, but it's not something. I basically, yeah, I have very like habitual, pleasant routine. I also really love when I live in the places where I actually can do that. I walk a lot, swim in the sea. That's something that I also love doing. Can you recommend a public figure physics lecture professor online that had given a lesson that helped you study in the past and helped inspire you to have interest in general topics of science, etc.? No, I can't. I was following just the curriculum. I never looked online. I was so busy studying that online it just was excessive. Like I could not afford that. But when I was doing my PhD, we actually had really interesting conversations. I remember I had a friend there. Everybody would leave, and we would just stay in the cubicles late in the evening, and would get sometimes guys coming from other rooms too, from other offices, and we would just have those infinite chats about something epic. So, and we worked also in such an interesting field of engineering and physics that was both material science and device physics and quantum physics. So we did a lot of in-depth things, interdisciplinary things that also had implications in the real world. So our work, in essence, was connected to understanding of the world as a whole on multiple levels. And of course, a lot of us were very interested in human behaviors. A lot of people had unique opinions, unique outlook on the world, counter to the systemic outlook. So it was quite. We did need to go online for that, perhaps. So. Have you ever studied Marcus Aurelius? No. Are you Russian? Yes, I am. Super interesting. Thank you, Ezra. Yeah, we had quite a club going on. So, and what's interesting also, I think physicists are should play more roles in the society. And actually, a lot of the people who become leaders of weird things, even let's not name the names, but a lot of them have mathematical or physical education. And I actually would want to encourage my children probably to study physics because it gives this universal perception of the world. And nothing that we have in the world is separable from that. So when we think about human psyche, human mind, human behaviors, you also start seeing them in a systemic fashion. My view of the world is very systemic. At the same time, there is this degree of when you study something deeply, and when you don't settle for certain social programming, you can actually develop something that other people might feel as some degree of psychopathy, perhaps. But you just allow yourself thinking. That's the best gift, because when you allow yourself thinking outside of the norm, that allows you to regard the norm and shape a more complete, more sophisticated outlook of the world and the possibilities of the world. And again, you when you're free in your mind, life feels much differently. But at the same time, it's much harder to find companionship, perhaps, because you start noticing how many patterns people live through. So Tantra and physics, actually, they go so close together. I was really comfortable studying Tantra. It was the first hardcore studies of some humanitarian things for me. I did everything. I did study psychology for 10 years before that. It was something that I really needed. And I was binge watching it. I was thinking about these things. I was analyzing so many things because I needed, again, I had this experience of immigration, like new environment, work environment. But then Tantra was this first thing, and wow, it was so cool to approach it after having super hardcore training in physics. Thank you, Kiva, so much. Спасибо, madam. Thank you, Kiva. So pleasant. So Tantra with perhaps, physics, perhaps some philosophy, psychology overlapped, and then you go to Tantra, was incredibly interesting to study. Just incredibly interesting. And then I started watching psychologists on YouTube through a totally different lens. You know what I started hearing? They would start appealing to what's normal in society. And I started feeling like when this is said, I cannot disagree with that. I cannot agree with that, because when somebody judges people's behavior solely what's normal in the society, that to me signifies the lack of flexibility in the mind, because creative mind implies that you are not going to live normal life. You're not going to follow the norm of society. The norm of society, which society too? With this more overwhelming outlook, and perhaps also grad school shaped that, you're very peculiar with terminology you're using. How can I use the word society? How can I use the word world? How can I? What's normal for society? Which society? Which society? Society that some like family of alcoholics, like some poor alcoholics in some suburb, not suburbs, even like some slums. That society will be its own thing. Some middle class society, corporate worker society will be its own thing. So which society are we talking about? Elite society will have its own its own rules. That society, what norm? There's different norm for every group. And decentralization of mind and not settling for simple models is something that's very useful that I extracted from the grad school from studying physics. And even in nutritional studies, in nutritional studies, that was a huge tool. Because when I started trying to find information on nutrition, I go online, and even in the papers on Google Scholar, they are not written to the standards of scientific rigor. They're not. That's why I put my study together on veganism, because I was like, I'm studying mechanism, I'm studying it from within, because what's there, some like washed statistics. The sample set is not defined, the diet pattern is not defined, nothing is defined, the conclusions are drawn, policies are created. This is the ethic in certain fields of science. That's not acceptable in physics. Of course, yeah, everywhere, like publishing can become something crappy can be published, of course, especially in the industries where people try to secure quickly some findings, some data. But the fundamental scientific attitude is super important in every field. And that's why Tantra is so handy for me. And not handy, but very like dear to me and very comfortable to me, because it is peculiar in defining things, making everything as personalized as possible, that I feel like it actually corresponds to my standards of how I perceive reality. And when we approach any problem solving, when we try to perform any discourse, you know how there are those conversations that are like, let's discuss something that we cannot check, that we cannot define, but we'll spend 3 hours in a heated debate without any purpose, without any goal type of thing. Just throw opinions at each other and dump our tension. Just like try to lower our tension. Let's discuss something that cannot be proven, defined, or anything. In Tantra, we're not doing that. This like just pointless philosophical discourse without the system being described does not take place. And that's so good. It feels so good. And when it's also problem solving oriented, it's very comfortable for me as an engineer. You know, psychoanalysis is a thing. And a person can spend years, decades, laying on the bed at psychoanalysis and just navigate through their mind. There's no goal setting, there's no problem solving, there's just an infinite process. interesting pursuit. You can understand a lot through that. But isn't it too ethereal? So that's also something. And what I want to say about that, about the systems being not characterized. The system must be characterized. And another important thing, which I always bring up when I can, when it needs to be brought up, is that we need to always bring up the conditions of applicability. Always. So somebody told me earlier, tried to catch me, that not everyone has the same reaction to trauma, of course. Examples. I mentioned it, I stated it clearly, it's one of the examples. But each case will be different, of course. And we need to know the applicability. And also when I do streams, that's educational stream. That's something that you can extract, apply to the methodology. Some methodology is universal, of course. Something that you can grab, apply just out of curiosity, or just play around with some concepts, some tools. But of course, when a person comes to me, it's only them, it's their issue, their particular case. And in the work, the funny and very meticulous part is to sit and bring all of the definitions, agree on all of the definitions, agree on all the goals, agree on all of the things, concepts, demystify them. Bring clarity. Clarity is what's achieved in the first steps in Tantra. Clarity, because we cannot solve the problem that is covered in mud. We can't. And that mental mud creates anxiety. This mental mud where we don't understand what is happening, who we are, what are we doing, what are we solving. What would be a good example of that? Discourse. I don't know, people arguing about, so debate. Some like religious debate, for example. About existence of something. Not provable. Why are you doing this? Let's agree first. Or veganism. I was invited to debate with vegans. I had some very crazy invitation once from one very famous vegan to debate. And my first question was, what are we debating? What are we debating? Is there an objective in this debate? Are we just going to spend 2 hours? Are we going to boost our following count? Are we going to boost our content? Is it going to be a promotional thing in which we're just wasting our breath in this exchange that will ultimately end on, I believe this is the right way, and the opponent will say that I have proof that it's the wrong way. No, I believe that it's the right way. Okay, nevertheless, I have a proof that it's the wrong way. So that is the debate. That is the discussion that we're spending time on. This is what we're spending our time on right now. As a discussion, it held zero value to me. As a way to draw some audience, okay. But at that point, I was kind of already burnt out on veganism. Anyway, because a lot to deal with. The body is a vehicle of cosmic consciousness. Again, define the terms. I don't know what cosmic consciousness is. Yes, I see that too in parts of YouTube self-opinionated. Yes, elite society would be different. That's actually given me more thought about the breakdown in Marxism, classing and distinguishing the difference in society's collaborative groups than may consist of Marxism and other, etc. This would be a good discussion to observe. Yeah, I would need to read more, and I need to read your comment again here, because it goes into specific issue, like collaborative peer review clarity, as if the thesis under review approach, where we all resolve the debate without dragging it out, relating to what you said about debate. Yeah, yes, but that's only can be effectively achieved through decentralization of things. Because most people, they look at some even political authority. Now we're going into this libertarian decentralized power, I guess. People can effectively organize to gather, for example, that they have a park. Like let's say there's a block of houses, and there's a park in the middle there. And they, for example, have broken benches in that park, or at the same time they're lacking garbage removal somewhere. So they have their budget, their local budget of that uh, block of buildings has budget to repair, to either repair benches this month or to address the garbage removal situation. So they gather and they vote. What do they want? Do they want better garbage removal, or maybe there's some other option, or they want benches removed or replaced? So this is the level of discourse in which people can be effectively voicing their opinions. But when we start making super complex systems, this is what creates the super split between human self-identity within a system and how system actually operates. Because right now, people don't influence anything. They literally vote for some things that are tangentially related to them, that do approximately nothing to them, but then they create a huge deal out of it because it's such a centralized thing that has barely any influence on their life. They have no influence on where it will go. So they're voting for someone making decisions for them. It's not even under their control. So that's the nature of the modern West, I guess, largely. Because humans can effectively live in the groups of 30, where they have some shared goal as a group of 30. When you have a shared goal as a group of 330 million, I apologize, no, well, it starts turning into circus, I think, largely. Intellectual enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, intellectual enlightenment, also enlightenment. How do we understand that we experienced intellectual enlightenment? But then, yeah, with the certain like large scale events, large scale phenomena, people don't understand why certain countries are colliding in their interests. Because who is aware of the whole geopolitical landscape right now? Who is aware of how economy and finance works right now? What are the powers? Because it's all behind the scenes. It's impossible to know. And that's also where tantric approach comes in handy. Go back, center inside, live from within. And then from that, develop this leadership gradually. See how you, personally, you can influence life around you, because you might be able to do so much more locally through the point of your leadership. Because when you recollect yourself, one of the amazing magic things that happens is when you come to this wholeness, you start being very aware of the conflicts of discomforts now in your psyche. And oftentimes, it will lead you to the point of unapologetic leadership, when you start feeling such an urge to become a giver, to become the creator. And that comes with taking responsibility for something. And you start seeing your influence on the environment. You have a lot of energy as well, because all of the trauma, conflict, everything that we don't realize, don't recognize, all of those harmful automations that don't suit us, they pull energy. They reduce our energy by a lot. Sexual conflict pulls energy by a lot. Our inability to connect with our libidinous energy pulls energy a lot. For new guys, I give an example of fiber optic cable or electrical conductor. What happens if we put a lot of defects in them? They will start scattering the energy, scattering the power that goes through them, and that scattering will make them a poor conductor for one, but two, if it's electric, for example, electric wire, if there are a lot of defects, this defects will start also creating the thermal load on this conductor. Thermal dissipation will start happening, and when that happens, the conductor can start getting damaged. So the human tries to conduct a lot of energy through this broken system with a lot of defects, cause the same thing, cause this overload and failure and an ability to conduct. So when we recollect the side effect of tantric development, reunion with all of your components, body, mind, psyche, sexuality, everything. You start being this leader. You start seeing, okay, what's wrong in my environment? Let me fix it. You fix it. Then you think, okay, how can I influence the bigger world? I want this project. I want to do this outreach here now. You go in the bigger world, you influence that. And suddenly, your world starts growing. You start influencing it more and more and more. You receive feedback and you gradually develop even better and better and better. And it all goes through this iterative process. It always work on yourself. It always to expand your transmission, to allow yourself to transmit and give more and more and more. But that's how your control grows from within. It's not that you are super anxious, you have super many blockages, you don't feel yourself, you don't feel your life, you don't feel your energy, you don't feel your sexuality, your body is all like just gradually tightens up and so on. You live in stress, you live in trauma, you live in dysfunctional reactions to the world. It's not like that. And in that, you know how in that state people usually go and they do, or they try to embrace on top of the anxiety that they have inside, they sublimate it into having anxiety about the system that they cannot control, but they think they can control. And the system that's so overwhelmingly huge, like the term society, world, economy, they try to embrace it, which they can't. That gives them an illusion of control. But what happens is that they're not effective applying that control there, neither they're controlling their life. That's why tantric method, tantric work would be very helpful for that person who is always in the mind, saving some countries, doing something, trying to do all these things, not saving factually, but in their mind they're having this fantasy that they're doing something grandiose without having a bit of knowledge what's happening actually, to return back and live from within. Learn to control. You know how I want to make a short actually about it, that people who want to save the world oftentimes have very messy home. Try going inside and learn how to manage this big of a space before you try to manage a huge space. Learn to manage one person. Get one employee. See how it is to manage one person. How you can actually control the actions of one person. Manage a bigger home. Everything that we're given right now is a milestone at which we need to show that we're capable of managing on this scale. Manage this. Do actions to make yourself capable of managing this well. When you learn that, scale up. Take one person into your management. Have a bigger home. You will naturally have a bigger home by then, because you will grow. When you learn to manage, it means that your energy will be flowing very well, which means that you're going to be able to be more ambitious. You're going to be able to exchange resources with the world better. You will scale up naturally. It just will happen. Be it your business, be it your home. Scale up. Manage that system. Can you manage it? If not, but you want, bring yourself up to that level at which you can manage it. And that every time you achieve perfection in what's given to you, you achieve that level that corresponds to your ambition at this level, and you're getting this new level open to you. That's just how it works. When you challenge tradition or authority, social construct, intellectual enlightenment, when you challenge tradition or authority, social construct, and intellectual enlightenment, it might be one facet of that. I would want to elaborate more on intellectual enlightenment. Boundaries are definitely needed, similar to that example of optical cable, where our energetic developmental process requires confinement so that we don't go frail. I like these examples you give. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm glad they're working for you. I like that concept, self-management, using our home as an example. Set parameters and draw radius, set boundaries. Yes. Kiva, thank you so much. Yeah, with boundaries, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. Boundaries allow us, and that boils down to our previous lecture on controlled experiences. Boundaries are essential for raising kids. The kids will be completely lost in chaos, anxious, without boundaries, without law, without knowing that there is a law and there is a representative of the law. Garuda Legends, thank you. Yeah, you made it. Hi. So boundaries are necessary for children. Boundaries are necessary for healing, for development, for actually taking, okay, I can manage, as you said in this context, I can manage this, and this spectrum of things. Can I do it better? Yes, when I get bored at that, I go up. I expand my boundary. And that also trauma works this way. Trauma can create a boundary for you. It will be this external boundary that protects you from the intruders, that protects you from those things. That's what we're doing instead of this trauma-based boundary, returning to the topic of this talk. Instead of that boundary that was set as our automatic response to some danger, we're gradually rebuilding this boundary to be our own boundary that we control. Modern psychology teaches feelings and how to resolve conflict by telling someone how you feel when you do something. I was brought up that no one can make me feel something. I choose how I react. It's an interesting one. That's wait, you choose how you react. You choose how you react, you mean emotionally, or do you choose how you react verbally, rationally, what you think about it? Let's figure this distinction out. Because this can be a very interesting phenomenon. I will give you, I wonder if you don't mind if I share my story, because it's your case and it might feel obnoxious that I share my experience with it. But I actually had an experience of responding to something with turning off my feelings. So boundaries is like safety net. Yes, exactly. It's a safety net, but you better control them. Because when you control them, you can make boundaries more eco-friendly. You can make them comfortable for you, as opposed to making boundaries like some people will develop. Let's say their boundaries are pushed and they're like, headache. I had a friend who was suspecting that her boyfriend was doing some engaging in infidelity, let's say, and every time he would go somewhere where she would feel like he was engaging in infidelity, she would fall in bed and like have horrible headache, which would make him buy her migraine spray to bring her, or migraine pill. So that was her way of establishing the boundary, because she could not control this boundary verbally. She could not control this boundary behaviorally, with awareness, with setting a law in the relationship. So there was no like partnership on that boundary. So she had to opt for manipulative physical boundary that was pain response. And when she was in pain, it was like, whoo, pain. And what to do, right? It's an ultimate thing everybody must respect. That's the boundary that nobody can cross, because socially it's not good, considered good, to step on the person or interest of the person who is actively in pain. It's considered very bad. So a lot of people will actually be responsive to that boundary, as opposed to setting the boundary in some dysfunctional relationship that it just hurts. I suspect that you're doing infidelity. It hurts. Can you not do this? Can you assure me that it's not happening? Can we somehow talk this through and come to mutual understanding that it's not happening, such that I feel comfortable, type of thing? When this is impossible, right? This boundary is not respected or not attempted to be established. So that's why there's this headache. So EDZ, I'm waiting for your response. What you mean by that? And if you don't mind sharing my story. Garuda Legends, I'm an Aries and Taurus cusp. The moon makes me happy. Full moon. It's actually full moon, right? These days. No one is touching during the full moon, and ironically, I'm the most kind. Never observed actually how it affects the mood. Noted, safety net, but make sure to control. It's bring it to your awareness. It's not like control can be a strong word in a sense that you can be like constantly like monitoring your boundary. It can be a defense mechanism in some early stages of recovery, but the goal is to just be aware of them. Like awareness and control. Awareness, I think, is more soft word because control can be reimagined as obsessive control in a sense, right? This is great and I'm here for it. Worse as I care, don't snap during full moon. Okay, sure. Very true, yeah. So a little bit the wording can be misinterpreted in some circumstances. That's why I might want to make sure. So, where were we? We were on the boundary, we were on expansion, we were like learn to manage on this level and then go up, scale up. Because, yeah, with children, with recovery, with any healing, with psychological advancements, with changing our lifestyle, we are already exerting more mental energy at that point. We don't want to also focus on safety. We don't want to have our systems alarming us about everything. That's why we create comfortable boundaries, padding. We have this padding. We create a comfortable environment, a safe environment for us to exercise new behavioral patterns because that's already energetically difficult process. It's novelty. Novelty for our brain already signals some degree of unsafety. That's why we create this padding and boundaries. What I mean is I was brought up in the sticks and stones era, where words didn't hurt. You control your emotions and reactions. You control your emotions and reactions, what you express to the world, right? It's normal. It's basic etiquette. Depending on the situation you're in, you will be using discernment to how you demonstrate your emotions. But the question is whether you are able to feel emotions. Are you able to experience them? Are you able to live through emotions? Or did it build the adaptation in which you are kind of scared of emotions yourself? I don't want to feel that. It's unsafe. It's uncomfortable. So what's your internal reaction to that? Do you embrace emotions and you're just acting reserved around people? Or do you avoid emotions in your internal life as well? You didn't allow someone to make you feel a certain way. Okay. Garuda Legends, thank you so much. I really appreciate your contribution. Keyword discernment. Everybody have a blessed night. Доброй ночи. Доброй ночи, Ruben. Thank you. All I need is the moon, water, and happiness. That's beautiful and poetic, Garuda. Thank you so much for your help, for your investment. Let's put it this way. Really happy. I'd rather be in the rain away from other humans. No, that's, yeah, you are. I wonder if you're in the warm climate or not. Up north, it's not. It doesn't sound that romantic right now to, for example, go in the rain near freezing. But I understand that in the summer, oh my god, it's such a beautiful experience. Embrace emotion, but don't base your decisions or reaction on them. Embrace emotions, good. So if you allow yourself that flow, don't allow your decisions. Or yes, it's a good skill. If that's something that can coexist with you being able to still feel without observer, if you allow yourself to breathe through, if you allow yourself to not get emotions stuck somewhere inside of you, it's a very useful skill. But if certain things cause you to have a reaction inside, and you just swallow it and you bury it here, somewhere here. Then you carry that or that somewhere here. You're not breathing. If your brain is going on a race, cycling through this thought that brought you this emotion, to play this emotion, to actually cause you to play this emotion. Sometimes brain can do that. It can be giving you this repetitive thing, begging you to actually remove this irritant, remove this trigger, act on it, do something, please. I will be torturing you with these thoughts. I'll make you do this. Remember how it was, remember how it was, remember how it was. React. Do something. It cannot continue like this. If you enter something like this, then it might be a problem. So let's also think about that. Because, funny thing, you didn't authorize me to do that, talk about that experience, I'll tell you something else. And it's related to that. I went through therapy. And I was legalizing aggression and stuff like that. And then I started deepening my relationships with my observer, internal observer, who works on the emotions and why certain things trigger me. And that game became so attractive to me that my brain developed a character that who I named Angry Bitch or Bitter Bitch. This was a bitter bitch that lived in my head. Whenever I would have any process of fantasizing about something, for example, I would want to have some emotional thrill, and I would be like, ha ha ha, I want to experience, for example, this romantic story. Let me see where it carries me. And I'm like starting to imagine something, and bitter bitch comes to my head, and she's like, how I imagine her, she's like a woman tired of life. She's like, stupid. What is stupidity? What is stupidity? Those stupid people, they really care about all of that? They care about kissing in the rain somewhere? It's disgusting. Even if you enjoy it right now, if you kiss in the rain right now, you'll marry. You'll have this grayish life where you will be experiencing this hatred with each other for the next 20 years. And what? It's pointless. Or this guy will turn out to be a complete total jerk. Why are you fantasizing about him? This was my bitter bitch, okay? So I had developed this character, the head bitter bitch. And I swear, I could not fantasize about anything. Anything that would be upbeat, funny, like sensually provoking, very like imaginative, very pleasant. Something that would give me some thrill back in the day. That bitter bitch would just kill. She'd just kill and like do this with her foot on it. And at some point I rebelled. I'm like, okay, what is this character in my head that always questions my beautiful experiences that I try to replay? That I try to bring my sensuality up, for example. Because back then it was a period also where I had some challenging period in my life where I tried to figure things out for myself. So at the same time, I felt this emotional numbness because I've gone through 2020 events. I got some immigration crisis, I guess, because I started having super strong nostalgia flashes. Then also the whole world started going nuts. So I started being very pretty much incapable of experiencing emotions anymore. Strong emotions, positive emotions. I could not listen to music that was like provoking. And this bitter bitch settled in my head as the means to protect me from feeling emotions. And I remember I was talking to my friend a lot. He was a very good friend of mine. We kind of part our ways. I guess we played role in each other's life and we just part ways. But he was the person through communication with whom I was able to gradually allow myself to listen to song and actually feel feelings again. And that's where I started being aware of that bitter bitch, and I started trying to get rid of her. And then gradually, especially through Tantra, I came to embracing the emotional sphere as the language that my psyche speaks with me. And actually, I was able to start conducting the emotions because I was able to integrate them all here. They all became part of my life in a sense. My god, go to the legends, thank you so much. I'm an introvert. I don't like humans who want to force me to be boring. I'm good, aka extroverts. Good to be you. Thank you so much again for your help. Very interesting. Your husband or future husband is a lucky man. I live in Miami, Florida. I don't want to be doomed and won't give up. Why are you thinking that you're going to be? You won't be doomed. What do you want? What do you not want to give up? It's very cool that you're in Miami. Actually, I loved Florida. Spent over a year there. I definitely resonate with you, and I think a lot do. That construct figment. The topic point is really getting across with these expression skills and energy Madam gives when explaining. Do you eat raw meat and drink raw milk, etc.? Do you think diet like this is an important part of healing and spirituality? Raw meat, fresh fruit, etc. I don't know. I was a raw foodist for 3 years, and when I started eating meat again, it was hard to eat not raw meat, or rather to eat so much cooked food all of a sudden. So I tried to eat rare steaks, but I don't trust the meat here as much, so I eat cooked meat. But I still eat raw fruits and vegetables for sure. And I don't eat grains. That's one of the specifics of my diet, probably. If I was to pinpoint one thing, I don't eat grains and I prioritize raw foods. But I can't say that I'm like raw animal based 100%. Again, I wasn't able to find good enough meat. So, but diet is definitely important because anemia, for example, such condition as anemia, and anemia can be due to iron deficiency, of course, but also B12, B6, folate, choline, methionine. There are 6 nutrients that can bring anemia. And anemia is the condition that is antagonist of psychological wellness. You will not be able to feel ecstasy of life without enough oxygen supply because you simply will not have enough oxygen to produce ATP, which is energy bearing molecule for everything, including our brain. With omega-3 deficit or prevalence of omega-6, the brain will not be working well. It will be working in battling inflammation. So it's impossible to do that on harmful foods, on artificial foods, on artificial sugars and prevalence of sugar in the diet. It's not going to work like that. So diet is incredibly important. Incredibly important. So I'm firm on that. And that's why with vegans, if vegans are not willing to quit veganism, I have it explicit on my website that I'm not vegan, such that vegans don't come to me for Tantra if they're not even considering ever quitting veganism, because I will not be able to help them. It's not going to work. I mean, I can help them to some extent, but we'll always be hitting this roadblock of them having avalanche of deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies. That's why I made this huge body of work that's on my YouTube, vegan deficiencies. Some things are just impossible to resolve with supplements because they're nutrients that we do not know exist, or the relevance of which we don't know. Look at this, 2 hours 20 minutes, my dog shows up every time. I think it's my ability to be super romantic without money. The thing romantic over money, yeah. Let me see if you wrote anything there. No? I started to eat some great raw meat from the butcher with raw egg yolks, etc. super smooth on the digestion, and then combined with pesticide-free fruit, etc. It's awesome, yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, I make sunny side up for what it's worth. I eat my yolks raw, but I don't like. I like my food warm pretty much. Also, I don't like raw meat that's cold. I don't like raw eggs that are cold. So I just cook them up to bring them to some temperature where it's pleasant to eat, without feeling that some just cold slime. I don't eat grains either. They destroy my gut. Yeah, grains. I think don't. It's I guess they feed people. That's the trade-off. You either have big population or have healthy population. That's the trade-off. But yeah, while I guess that's a harsh eugenics conversation, but grains, yeah, they are harmful for a lot of people. Not many people have adaptations to grains in their gut. I respect that you tell them beforehand. Respect. Thank you. Yeah, because it's I am a tantra coach, but I had second opinion on that. I have series of interviews with ex-vegans on my channel, and I actually had one ex-vegan who was uh, plant-based for brain health, and she works as a psychotherapist. Can't say that's my one-to-one equivalency of colleague, but she said that when she has vegans coming to her, she knows that the process will be much, much longer. Process of therapy, process of achieving some results, and may be ineffective because there are very crude factors that are influencing a person. It's like, putting someone, in vibrational chamber, or in the chamber with like some buzzing noise, pulsating buzzes, and give them psychotherapy. If they live in this buzzing thing with a lot of stimulus, with like flashes of light shining at them 5 times a night, of course, which therapy? I mean, just come out of this chamber first, which inflicts the most the irritation. That's the foundational factor of you being in this mental place, and then let's figure something out. Or at least, if you don't know how to exit this chamber, but you want help, let's start doing the help, and we will be focusing on getting out of this chamber together. With vegans, I cannot work because they are not interested in finding the tools to exit the chamber. They're not interested in that. And if a person, for example, would want to quit veganism but they can't, or they have a part of their personality that would want to do that, then it's doable. But I know too much about veganism to support it in any form, or to be fully or to be a comfortable helping person for a vegan who does not recognize or not willing to take any other opinion on that. So I just am burdened by my knowledge to be not to be tolerant enough, to be patient perhaps enough to work with the person where there is elephant in the room that influences their body. And that's why I have a disclosure on my website that I work veganism. In essence, I treat it as an ED, and I have a disclosure on my website on Human Renaissance Service that if a person has an ED and they come to me for help, they must be supervised by a psychiatrist and go through a medical assistance that both medical assistants and psychiatrists clear them to go pursue my services. Because alone, I don't know that it's fair and safe to work with people in that position. That's why I just make it clear that we're not on the same page, and there are some foundational things. Because with vegans, you know how with people, first step of tantric work is to audit the human's lifestyle. If a person is eating right, sleeping well, or has sleep schedule, even if they have poor sleep, they at least have some sleep schedule that allows them to rest, that allows them some time, some adequate time to rest. That they go out, that they move their body, blood circulates, that they do all these basic things, that they do personal hygiene. That's the first step. We need to audit. They're washing, brushing their teeth, brushing their hair, sleeping, eating. With diet, if they're vegan, there's no possibility to influence them to eat better, because they absolutely close the whole essential food group. So nothing can be done without them coming from within, without being proactive on that. And other people, they can change their approach. They don't have a mental prohibition that this food is bad, this food is prohibited, this is sinful, evil food. They can change their approach and start eating anything they want. Eat like more meat and vegetables, for example, as opposed to eating like bread and pasta all the time and ice cream. So that's where it's different. But then at the same time, my forte, one of my specialties that actually psychotherapists are not necessarily aware of, that's where my services come in, a little bit unique perhaps, is where I do rehabilitation of vegans who want to quit. Because that's where I can work with them on what is behind their pursuit of veganism. What is that? Is it your bad, dirty person? Do you project your feelings onto animals? Is this tortured animal a symbol of something you're going through? And at the same time, aggression exists. It's usually directed towards non-vegans or self. Can we legalize this aggression? Can we relocate aggression and empathy a little bit? Then some people, especially in raw vegan communities, they suffer from this split in their body, that part of the body is good and some other part of the body is dirty. Some bodily functions are dirty. So they have split. And again, Tantra does what? Tantra seeks wholeness. So we need to find this split and find the concepts and turn them into neutral attributes of human existence, such that human starts feeling neutral and their attention is towards something creative, as opposed to holding a bunch of energy, holding a bunch of focus in something that's not productive, that's destructive. So that's the work with vegans. But for that, there must be an initiative inside, at least from the part of the human. They might not be full-heartedly set on that. Of course, if a person is full-heartedly set on that, I'm quitting veganism, that's not the problem. The person goes and quits veganism today, yesterday. But when there is a conflict, and I want, but I can't, for example, my husband is vegan, my children are vegan, I did so much mess in my life already with that. For example, I have interviews with vegan, ex-vegan moms whose children weren't growing, and now, excuse me, how to live with that? Because of that belief you held on to, you already created whole reality out of that. Friends are vegan, acquaintances, people are scared of them. At the same time, there is such a complex of emotions, and at the same time, there is this perception of how people love to live from achievement to achievement type of mentality. And then there is an illusion that they don't recognize that there is no award in the end. It's not some marathon that has a medal and $1 million of a prize in the end. It's not. It's a daily life, that's it. Veganism doesn't have an achievement in the end. It's a daily life. And that's where it becomes also reconceptualizing this thing. What are you doing it for? From this achievement to every day. And also this service, like, what are you serving? What is your mission? And also another big thing is identity. Why do you need vegan identity? This vegan identity, what does it constitute? Because when I choose some identity, I had a stream about relationships, and some conservative guys showed up. And they were voicing the problem that I'm a conservative guy, but there is a split between men and women in terms of their political views. So how to be if I'm a conservative guy? How to find a partner? Knowing that there is a split between men and women. And so in that instance too, why do you need to identify as a conservative? Are you like literally the conservative? What is conservative? Can you define it in all breadth? What does it constitute to you? Do you agree with everything that's conservative in your definitions? Or are you just a human with these beliefs? Here you can be progressive. You don't have to be, technically, you don't have to identify some overwhelming conservative. Some like poster conservative. You don't have to. You can have these conservative views, these progressive views, being agnostic on this topic, agnostic on this topic, and in general, mind your business. So, what is this conservative placket is like? What is that? So when you start breaking it down, you start seeing that this identity has some meaning to a person. The mere fact of having an identity. Conservative, progressive, vegan. And what is that? And how illustrated, if you watch my other live streams, it's like this. Nope, it's mine. No, don't touch me. No, no. The flow of life is going, the sea, the river of life is going, but you're like, nope, I'm not gonna swim. I'm not gonna flow. Nope. It's something to just hold on to oftentimes. I'm holding on, I'm controlling, I'm safe. But when you're holding on, retaining, controlling, fixating, you're not flowing with the flow of life. Which means that you're going to be polished, tumbled by life, because life wants you to flow with it. That's where you can feel alive. By changing your focus onto identity without learning how to flow with life, you are going to feel something in life only when you're focusing on your identity. That will give you that spark. Outside of that, you will feel lost, lonely, not being able to feel, savor life in the moment, feeling their body. So that's the danger of identity. When identity makes you unable, makes you paralyzed to pivot in life, when identity makes you unable to make choices. Identity over experience. That's the trade-off that we're often presented. Identity versus fully living our life. Gender games too. I have on Saturday especially, we have a special people on Saturday that are always really curious if I'm trans or something like that. Gender identity comes into place. Or there will be people also in the chat sometimes, go wash dishes, woman. Woman. Identity is a woman. Why? People identify with neurodivergence. Why? What for? You live from identity. You're holding on to identity, not from within. Let me see the chat real quick. You wrote so much, guys. Time went by so fast, doesn't seem like 2 hours already. Yeah. Dog always shows up at the right moment. Every time. Yeah, dog knows. He has internal clock. He's very regimented, actually. He's super regimented. And also he does laundry. He also tells me when the teapot is whistling. And he also notifies me if I miss the alarm or something. So he's very regimented and has like playtime, food time, everything perfectly regimented in his head. Grains are for slaves. Initially, yeah, that's I don't know what came first. Perhaps people discovered them first as like, wow, grains, and then the grains created the precedent for the system of slavery to originate. So they came, who knows what came first, right? But that's the attribute of, yeah, of people under some governance, some centralized power. I like lamb and lentils, turkey and fish. You're right, thank you, Garuda Legends. Lamb, yeah, is also something I like. Weird thing, weirdest thing. Actually, even, lamb can come with very tender smell, barely noticeable flavor. But some lamb is so stinky. And I caught myself realizing that even though that lamb smells like wet woolen sweater with flesh, mixed with flesh, I enjoy it. It's such a crazy, it's like bizarre. It's like discovering that you like olives as an adult, after childhood. Could you, in short description, tell us what your services entail? Tantric something. I'm new to your channel. Tantric something, yes. Tantric coaching or tantric therapy, whatever request you come to me with. My services entail, in short, how to tell it in short. I would encourage you to watch my video 13 Steps of Tantra if you're very interested in that. But in short, it is working on, it's a weekly work. Normally it's a weekly work, hour and a half. The session happens, the first session, you tell me your problem. We turn your problem into the task. We also audit your lifestyle. We make sure that from this moment onward, you have everything very regimented. You are taking steps towards these and these and these things. And after the first session, I may send you already some regulating practices, breathing practices typically. Something that you can start using on a daily basis. So after the first session, you already leave me with some homework, some easy things that you do every day. Breathing techniques. On the second session, we do a review and we start a little bit deeper work on your issue. And I teach you, depending on your request, I will be teaching you some further practices. Tantra is all practices, not all. Okay, there is conversational therapy in which we need to discuss, we need to be agreeing on every term, we need to be analyzing the problem and turning your problem into some, let's say, psychophysical entity as opposed to some abstract thing. So we need to be able to crystallize it, not just even in the task, but as we work, we will be turning it into the imagery, symbology, or even like the life that you want will also be turned into imagery, symbology, some objects for meditation. And we're going to gradually go through the whole course of Tantra that is depicted that is all outlined in the 13 Steps of Tantra. There are timestamps. You can go under the video and click on each of them. But how I describe the result of tantric work is that from the dark tunnel of limitations, tension, inability to escape vicious cycles, not knowing what to do, but it hurts, you're going to gradually unfold yourself into the world of possibilities. It's like 360, imagine a dome-like cinema theater in which you are experiencing everything. And in the end, if you go to the point of tantric sex, you're also opening the door to some pleasures on a physical level, because now you can actually experience them. So that's the transition that you receive in the end of the tantric work. But overall, you receive a ton of tools to now be able to navigate your life without crashing. Basically, it turns from you just swimming like this, like holding on to some buoy in life, in the sea of life. We put you on a surfboard. And now you can have fun, you can experience things. If you want, from time to time, you can also tumble in the waves. But then you have this skill of surfing. That's probably would be a good analogy for that. But also analogy of expansion. Expansion and union. On the one hand, your life expands. On the other hand, you get recollected. So through this recollection of all of your vital resources into one wholesome thing where nothing is in conflict, nothing is ripping apart inside of you. You are turning into this one thing. All of your energy can be focused now, your mind can be focused, and at the same time, you learn the full assortment. It sounds like a paradox. On the one hand, you are like refocusing, recollecting. On the other hand, your life expands. Hope that's clear. So, very engaging conversations. Interesting. You are the carrot. Sure, Mark. Why not celery? Interesting. This is fascinating take on veganism. There is a whole lot of logic to it. There is. And also with communicating with vegans, I know this thing from inside. From just trying to take care of your health, all the way to same thing as original sin type of thing. All the way. Or to wanting to find authority, to and so on and so forth. Raw vegans is all about detox, detox, detox. For me, raw veganism was I was like shocked when I started talking. Everybody was doing those like flashes and stuff, and I'm like, God, the mucoid plaque and stuff. Vegan children permanently altered into a new reality. That was deep. That's vegan children actually do. They grow into totally different people. Their expression of genes changes. That's something I read paper. I have paper. I was working on my vegan deficiency series, and I had an idea to do also vegan children, but I was so burned out on veganism because I was like, I said enough about veganism, and published also information from the articles on how certain deficiencies affect children specifically, but there were papers that studied actual changes, permanent changes that happen in children because of veganism in the early stages of development that affect their entire life. They're irreversible. Interesting stuff. Thank you. There's more good common sense on this channel than the vast majority on other channels to stay the last. Thanks so much. It's very pleasant to hear. This is now my favorite channel on YouTube. Oh my god, thank you so much, Ezra. I'm so happy. Agreed, Shuriken. Thank you so much, Kiva. I wonder what you think about transgender ideology. I don't know what their ideology entails. It just feels also that, I don't know, transgenderism is a phenomenon. I think also, I personally feel like, because we have such a general, let me just start over. I think this whole gender thing is artificial to begin with, because biological sex addresses the split into two sexes, addresses very specific biological goals. Everything else is the way we survive. That's it. All gender roles are survival. Everything beyond survival is all arts and crafts. It can be anything. So, gender roles are just anything. That's why I don't feel like it's worth making a point out of anyone being of any gender in the world and in the societies for which gender does not bring any essential, like having some gender role does not bring any essential function. So when this person or group of people does not need those gender roles for immediate survival, extraneous gender roles. I'm not talking about like womb and ovaries and testicles, specifically the sex. That's necessary for reproduction. That's necessary that our hormones are like how they regulate the body. But without those artificial gender concepts, I think so many people would be able to embrace a multitude of gender expressions that the whole transgender theme will be irrelevant. Because if it was possible to live in a post-gender or parallel to gender world, parallel to gender society, community, it would not need all of this discourse to begin with. So I don't understand it. I don't understand the relevance of this topic to begin with in the society. That is why this philosophy of transgenderism is a reaction, I think, is a reaction to the existence of this artificial system that nobody cares about deep inside, or would not want to care. Because gender roles in the modern world are artificial. And they should be decided on a very private level. There are two people who love each other. They build certain family, their personal temple, their personal institution where they are building their beautiful garden of love. The rest, I don't know why it matters. And I feel like the more people embrace as many facets of their personality, however they frame gender roles to be for themselves, the more they embrace, the more powerful and more free they become. A beautiful vulnerability in a man, strength of a woman, leadership in a woman. Apply them where they apply. The art is to apply your features, apply your skills where they're relevant, where they will be put to use. That's the trick. As opposed to trying to start like misplacing things. I'm using this role where it totally doesn't apply, with an expectation that it will apply, or somebody will applaud to me, and then I get upset, and then I'm a victim elsewhere, and then I'm misplacing this role, putting it here, and I'm upset in this area of life. Just swap the roles, swap your functions. Like I had this bitter bitch. Where does bitter bitch apply? Bitter bitch is very good at filing taxes. A bitter bitch is very good at assessing my work. That's where bitter bitch is very good to have, because she'll be criticizing. But when I am enjoying, I know, standing under waterfall and water pouring on me, do I need bitter bitch in my head at that point to tell me to, nah, this experience, nah. No, it's stupid. I want to be my child. I want to be my most childish, most purest animalistic when I receive this treatment from the waterfall splashing on my head. That's the role that I need. And if I'm in my inner child, I'm going to the business meeting. Okay, it could be fun, but if I actually want to get something done in accordance to my vision for how it should be done, nah, probably not a good idea. People will be just having fun with me, not treating me seriously. I need to balance that role. That's the principle. A very interesting conversation. Shuriken Zone. Sister, have you tried Haggis before? It's actually quite good, particularly lamb. No. The 13 steps of Tantra video is worth looking into. Best of all, it's 2 hours. Thank you, Kiva. Really happy for your endorsement. You remind me of Dr. Natasha Campbell, the woman behind Gaps. You speak just like her. Hee. Man, my typing is still worse than usual. There must be something out of balance. Coquetry. Shuriken Zone. Love this reflection talk. This is super interesting. Thank you so much. Post. Oh, actually, I just realized that you're a post-finasteride syndrome. I wonder where your nickname came from. You must be fun to have around for family dinners. Oh my god, I have to be quiet for those. I actually... Uh, I'm not sure about that. Let's put it this way. This is a great set of notes. Thank you, Kiva, so much. Shall we wrap up soon, guys, by the way? Because... how was my chart looking? Oh, I'm actually not even... Wow, my phone is performing so well tonight, probably. Cool air helps it. Dinner sounds good right now. Yeah, exactly. Are you open to speak about conspiracy theories on this channel? Which conspiracy theories? I'm open to that. Yeah. There's also, you see, I also want to mention something. Conspiracy theories, just an external outlook on that. Some conspiracy theories get so... I had the thought that there is conspiracy behind conspiracy theories, because I watched people just throwing their life away because of conspiracy theories. So I am I'm prone to believing that conspiracy theories themselves are partially a conspiracy theory for people to get deflected from their life. That's the sentiment. But uh, no, the well, 2020 virus. It's not conspiracy. I had access to so many. It's well, basically, I don't associate myself with the demographics that comes the target of conspiracies, because I developed a habit of treating everything that comes from any form of authority, especially with very caring voice, as a marketing campaign. So if we take into consideration that everything is a marketing campaign and I'm here to choose from my options, in that sense, it starts becoming a conspiracy theory. It starts being just a good old marketing campaign, because we live in a big corporation. We live in corpocracy, and that's how I feel about the world. So with the 2020 events, it was quite apparent, especially with my Russian living. I know how corruption looks. I know how it's done. So to me, it was, and again, who trusted this? Who trusted these things from above? Sometimes, I want to recommend people to open Marquise de Sade, 100 Days of Sodom book, and on an empty stomach, and read first 100 pages. When was it written? In the 19th century or 18th century? So 100 Days of Sodom. Read those 10 pages. Read any novel by Victor Hugo, or Victor Hugo in English, I guess. Read any novel of those. That was all written so many centuries ago that I never felt like anything coming from above is an act of care. Never. I could not feel this way. So anyone who reads one first 10 pages of 100 Days of Sodom will know that it's all very, very funny proposal, and people are disposable resource, so to speak, for in that relationship. That's why the best thing you can do is to take advantage of this relationship while being pragmatic and knowing what the system encompasses, what it represents. Take your advantage from it, and however much time and resource you have, just withdraw yourself as much as you can. Because of course it's impossible to leave the system completely, it's probably unrealistic. But a lot of people don't even bother to think how they can make best of interaction with the system, because they're absorbed in the system, playing the plot of the system. And everybody perhaps plays some plot of the system, and system itself is not too stable. It's changing as well. It's changing, it's fluctuating, it's moving somewhere. But it shouldn't be the center focus of ours, I don't think. It's very good to understand by reading classical literature. It's very good to understand that no one cares about you above there. None. Look which social benefits you can get. Are you getting all social benefits from the system that you need, that you can? So go and check. Make sure that you get all social benefits right now. Apply for grants for your businesses. Perform all those things. See which countries exist, for example, if you're very wealthy or getting very wealthy. See how you can, for example, invest your capital better. Research those things. There are tools in the system. So turn conspiracy theories into something productive. So because, again, I saw people who get so demoralized by who get demoralized by conspiracy theories to the extent that they're thrown into deep depression. They're like, okay, nobody cares about me. The world is going to hell. I guess I'll just lay down. That's it. No. Realize that it's always been the case. That it's always this game. That human society is also based on very primal rules. Nobody necessarily promised that because we live in the system, we're now living in some supreme enlightenment. No. The system is built by natural creatures, humans. And natural creatures, humans, they have natural behaviors that became the foundation of the system, of how it's built. Plus, also, we have 10 trends in reproduction. People don't reproduce across different social groups. People don't. There is spontaneous. If you happen to be, I guess the interesting creative work commences when we think about the individual changeability. When, for example, in the family of alcoholics and idiots, you suddenly have a genius. The genius is born. And that genius becomes a very interesting, the life of this genius becomes a very interesting creative problem. How this genius will walk their path in a way towards their creatorship. If people settle, it's not my problem. It's not the problem that should concern us. Some random people. You cannot change groups, you cannot change the masses that are designed to be such. You can only work with this individual changeability, with this rare instance in which there is self-identification happens and becomes and kind of surpasses the qualities of mass, of the environment of that person, of their family. Now, geoengineering, depopulation, Epstein. On Epstein, I mentioned it in one of the streams that how many people do the same thing and in extreme poverty to the extent that their children feel like having that done to them on a tropical island perhaps would be better. That's a reality of most people because most people form dysfunctional families and reproduce brainlessly. So depopulation is also, I mean, it's rabbits and wolves problem, right? Classical informatics problem, IT problem when you just start learning how to solve problems using computer in the third grade. I don't care about it. Humans, again, if you live in accordance to some plot without trusting your senses, then so be it. You see, I have conflict not with conspiracy theories. I have conflict with mass phenomena, and I have conflict with the fact that conspiracy theories themselves can be debilitating for humans. Thanks, Kilo. Great live stream, by the way. I look out for the next one. Smart lady, thanks so much, post finasteride syndrome. I stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I decided to remove my Saturday stream because we have people who are quite random people. And maybe I will cut one extra stream because we're going to have workshops. Smart lady, thanks. I find it fascinating how from the start of the stream my phone is full battery and when we're close to the end of it, it gets closer to 10% exact. Yeah. Yeah, make sure to charge mine because I'm at 33. Wow, it's strangely holding 3 hours. It's insane. Conspiracy theories are quite a complex topic. Many are nothing more than distractions, while some of them are almost certainly quite true. The trick is figuring out which is which. The funny thing is, all conspiracy theories sound whack at first, but end up being true, all of them. Get point, freaking. No matter how crazy they might sound, they all end up true, sadly. I don't know, lizard people conspiracy seems pretty far out there. If it turns out to be true, we all have a lot of rethinking to do. I haven't heard this or that one. I'll look into it. Yeah, post finasteride. There are some accounts which post absolutely mystical. It's like people who go and turn, they turn the conspiracy theories into sci-fi. And I understand that we should not perhaps close our mind to possibility of just anything, but there's a cool saying that if you become too open-minded, your brain might fall out. So, hello beautiful, hello Juan. Removing the Saturday stream seems like it's a wise plan. Yeah. Yeah, what if we had moderators in the stream chat? What if, what if, my birthday is this Saturday? Cool, Tim. Hope you'll enjoy it. I'd roll around in honey and lay in fire in bed just to hear you through a walkie-talkie. Wow, Fogler, man. So, yeah, yeah. Depends on the depth of conspiracy theories that we're looking into. Because certain phenomena, yeah, like World Economic Forum, for example, that thing is interesting. Are your live streams usually like this or something else? Yes, usually like this. Like open Q&A live streams, or yes, it is a theme. Usually I have a theme, some topic that we go through in the beginning, and then the audience gets inspired to ask their questions if the topic was interesting, and then I open the stage for just random discussions or wherever this thing brings us to. Interesting observation is that when I start some topic and then we go on super side tangent, there's almost certainly a way to bring this topic back to the beginning. So, this side tangent back to the topic in the beginning. It's always fascinating for me. You should do a nutrition live stream. It sounds like you've had quite a journey there. Yeah, I did. Nutrition is a thing that people will debate without any. Again, we mentioned this debate thing. People will debate nutrition, and if there is a debate, and I sometimes I can get caught in a debate, and I think it's not productive when it comes to nutrition, because people eat what they eat. And if they're excited to share what they eat, they likely have quite a bit of experience that brought them to the point of what they eat. So, what I can tell about nutrition can be summarized in a very short formula: minimize grains, maximize fresh vegetables and fruits, don't abuse much sugar, including from fruits, and eat high quality grass fed animal products without fearing fat, and eating also some seafood perhaps. And eat whatever you crave otherwise in terms of whole foods from from more or less natural source. Of course, a lot of the things are cultivated from plant kingdom, for example. But that would be my stance based on my extremely broad and perhaps unique experience. So that's what I would say. Other things, people do all sorts of things. And I witnessed a story in which a person, for example, started being hyper-reactive to a majority of foods because their MCS triggers. So they cannot, for example, follow this diet to a T because it would make them full carnivore. But then in full carnivore, there are certain considerations to be taken, and it was not basically sustainable for the person to adhere to it. So, what to do? They have to eat some grains, some rice and stuff, and choose fruits wisely too. So, then I personally don't like cheese and fermented dairy as much. Cheese, especially, I can't eat. So, I drink milk. People would look at me like, "Oh, you drink milk, man. It's bad. You need to eat fermented dairy and stuff." So, there's so much to debate on that. But everyone's got the formula. And even if they don't have a formula, oftentimes, if they don't come to you as to a nutritionist with a specific issue they want to address, what to do? I mean, yeah, you can communicate with the person's psychological level of how to reimagine the relationships with food through Tantra, right? And plus also reinforced with my nutritional experience. It would be quite a good combo, in fact. For example, a person suffers from body image issues. They're not able to lose weight, they have emotional overeating, or they have something that prevents them from losing weight. They wear this costume on them. Yeah, it's tantric problem, and it's both nutritional problem as well. I can work on that. But if I just tell a person who has excess weight, if I tell them, okay, this is your diet, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I do this weekly thing such that they're not bored. Give them a whole table of foods to eat for good figure and good nutrition. No deficiencies. This person will adhere to it for a couple of days and then will show me middle finger and will do their own thing again. Because psychological base is not ready for that. I've gone through that with some of my acquaintances who were like, no, how to eat to be in a good figure. Like this. Okay. And then, no, I wasn't able to. Sure. What to do? The streams are always interesting and eclectic. They never disappoint. Thank you, Shuriken. I just want to make sure you aren't a fictional character. How do I prove? You see eyebrows. I don't know. Do I have eyebrows that are with good definition? 28 pages of notes. Kiva is writing a book after me. It's so amazing. Thank you, Kiva. Great nutritional tips. I agree. Things you post, finasteride. By the way, if you happen to run across the short from today, please know that the Coke can was Mr. Shuriken's, not mine. Oh, okay. Sure. I got what you're saying. Raw milk is amazing. Nutritionists will say you should destroy your gut with indigestible fiber. Need tons of nuts and seeds to have diverse microbiome. Yeah. Yeah, fiber. I was microbiome maxing on the raw vegan diet, living with bloating for 3 years. And I recently craved salad again. I made myself a huge salad. I wanted fennel and like summer vegetables. So I got all those summery vegetables, greens, fennel, everything. Enjoyed it so much. Several hours later, and I'm like, I lived like this for 3.5 years. I lived like that. It's insane. Yeah, I tried going vegan for a week and okay, and got absolutely blew up. Stopped right away. Yeah, it's not. Russian eyebrows. It's definitely a book at this point. I bet. Yeah, vegan is its own thing. I don't know, especially I don't know. Raw veganism was a blessing for me because that's how I discovered. It was my first time experiencing not having migraines in my life without medicine. It was phenomenal. I'm so grateful for that. And then from raw veganism plus, when I introduced meat, Kuzya, иди сюда, иди ко мне на ручки. I realized that grains were the problem all along. I was like, okay, I eat raw vegan. Then I eat raw vegan plus meat. What's the commonality? What's the common thing that's gone? The common thing that's gone is grains. And then I introduce grains sometime later, and I have headache, and I'm like, okay, and zits, acne. Actually, on raw veganism, even I had acne still. Never faded. Acne in extreme period pain. Just extreme period pain. Both on plant-based and on raw vegan. It was nuts. Animal-based was just what was needed all along. When my whole notebook is filled and I have officially reached my goal. What nationality are you? I'm largely Polish and close to half Russian, a little bit Ukrainian, and from Baltic, Lithuania, Latvia. Blessing in disguise. Everything happens for a reason, Yeah. Do you also have reactions to white rice, though? To white rice, not as much. But I do have to white rice. It can trigger migraine if it like overlaps. If I eat a lot of it consistently for several days, like I don't take breaks, and then I have some compounding factor, it can be a migraine for me. Yeah. Otherwise, not so much. It doesn't give me acne. You have a lovely accent. Thank you so much, Twisted. I'm Polish and Lithuanian. That's cool. My family settled, my great grandparents, they settled in Asia actually. They fled, I guess, Russian Empire. They probably had some processes against Polish people and some other groups. So they just settled in Asia. I didn't know my origins until I did the test. About 1,000 years ago, I dated a Polish girl for a little while. Congratulations. I guess it was not that good. Harbin? No. I don't know what you're actually talking about. Why am I saying no? What's Harbin? Fill me in on that. There was a story, by the way, how Soviet Union was throwing people out in Kazakhstan. And there was, I found some newspaper note describing that. They put people in the train and they sent them directly to Kazakhstan, flat. It's like plains in northern Kazakhstan. There's nothing. It's just flat thing. And they just dispatch them from the train into nothingness, into these flats. Like, think of Kansas or Nebraska, like something like that. And Harbin, Russian chance, rarest castle in the world. Harbin, I remember. I think I saw it on the map. Harbin, thank you for reminding me of that. No, it was Kazakhstan. So in Kazakhstan, yeah, they settled and they dispatched them right in those flats. There was only grass. I don't know if they brought some cattle, but there was one signature thing that they were doing. They were making houses out of manure and grass and stuff like that and mud. That's how this whole Russian settlement, or Russian, I guess, Polish, Jewish, Ukrainian settlement began in northern Kazakhstan and actually built pretty nice cities as a result after some time. So that was the history. But Kazakhstan now, talked to my grandparents. They said that it's just different, like wasteland of Europe. They actually export their waste, radioactive waste, to Kazakhstan. That's why the ecology there suffers a lot, unfortunately. So people try to leave it. It was interesting. I always like learning about other cultures and so on. When I was in college, I made a ton of friends from Eastern and Central Europe. My Bulgarian friend introduced me to my wife. Wow, nice. Nice, nice, nice. This is a good writing break. Yeah, Kiva, I think we should soon. It's 9:40 already at where I am. Okay. We need to probably start wrapping up. That's what we need to do. I'll see you guys tomorrow if no plans change. Tomorrow is Wednesday. And I'm going to be live probably at 4, 5, 6 p.m. I don't know, Eastern time. What's your thoughts on Andrew Tate? I mean, he's a clown. I don't know. He learned how to make money and he has this media persona. I don't know if he's even authentic on camera or not. It's, he monetizes a persona. He's milking a persona. So, that's in brief. Okay, just close notebook. Yes, got around. Good night. Good night, guys. Yeah, but it's getting late for sure. Take care and have a good one. I'm with my friends. Thanks. Thank you for the lesson. Thanks so much, Ezra. I'll see you around. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you so much. Great live stream. Good night. Thank you. Thank you, madam. He's a clown. Yeah, thank you. I'm disconnecting.